HK Army is proud to sponsor this episode of the Play the Game podcast, and they are excited to announce that the $20 cases of paint will continue into the NXL Chicago event, and this opportunity is open to any teams attending the 2024 NXL Chicago Open. This means that any organization, regardless of sponsorship, can take advantage of shooting Level 5 exclusive HK tournament paintballs for only $20 a case, and the new formula just got done winning back-to-back events for the Texas and Atlantic City NXL events, as Russian Legion was shooting ball-on-ball HK paint to win those events in dominant fashion. You have got to check out this new pink shell yellow fill formula and give it a try for yourself. So what are you waiting for? All you have to do to reserve your paint at the NXL Chicago is email the HK squad at sponsorship@hkarmy.com to get on the list. Do not hesitate, because this paint is going to sell out fast. Head on over to your email and send your message to sponsorship@hkarmy.com right now to get on the list. If you want to ensure that your team dominates at the 2024 NXL Chicago, then shoot the best paint with HK Army and email them now at sponsorship@hkarmy.com. This episode of the PTG Show is brought to you by Andrew Lopez Law Professional Corporation, a California injury lawyer, and they are on a mission to get justice for their injury victims. Andrew Lopez Law provides comprehensive services from car accidents to slip and falls, and handle a wide range of personal injury cases with expertise. Their recent victories include a $2.6 million jury verdict, a $560,000 settlement against a rideshare company, and with their expert legal representation, you can trust that a dedicated personal injury trial lawyer with years of experience will be fighting for your rights. Andrew Lopez Law is a family-run law firm with free consultations, personalized attention, compassionate support to guide you through every step, a proven track record. They're available 24/7, will work tirelessly to maximize your compensation you deserve, and they work with a no-win, no-fee policy, so you don't pay unless they win your case, which ensures you receive justice without the financial risk. If you're in need of an injury lawyer, then look no further and call Andrew Lopez Law PC at 213-474-1100 for your free consultation. And once again, that number is 213-474-1100. And also follow Andrew Lopez Law on Instagram at Andrew Lopez Law PC. And once again, their Instagram handle is Andrew Lopez Law PC. One last time, that number is 213-474-1100 for Andrew Lopez Law to fight for your injuries. This episode is brought to you by Lone Wolf Paintball. They are an amazing online supplier and have been around since the beginning of the game as Michigan's premier paintball field and paintball supplier since 1987. They are rapidly expanding into the online retail space and supplying everything you need to be the best paintball player you can be. They have got it all. Head over to lonewolfpaintball.com and shop all of your favorite brands. And they also boast amazing customer service and will have this out to you with same-day shipping, which is amazing. It's always nice to know that your stuff is on its way immediately so you can start to use it that very next weekend of play. Check out their YouTube, Lone Wolf Paintball, and their Instagram at Lone Wolf PB, and stay up to date with all of their deals and sales. Play the Game podcast is immensely honored to have them on board, and we cannot wait for you guys to check out lonewolfpaintball.com and become a part of their community.
What's going on, PTG Nation? Thank you guys so much for tuning in and rocking with us. My goodness, we've got an absolute banger. Again, these episodes have been really good lately. We have Coach Ryan Gray, who will be coaching Scalp. And obviously with the news of his release from Diesel, there's a lot of juice and a lot of meat on the bone here. This episode was full of knowledge for up-and-coming players and organizations. You guys do not want to miss this one. So without further ado, we are going to hop in the show.
That was an insane inside move by Marcelo Margot. Great communication.
And the crowd starts chanting Harmon.
Great shot by all the guys. So Tyler Harmon saved that game. He came out with 2 wins. Marcelo Margot was on fire.
Hello, PTG Nation. Thank you so much once again for joining us on the show. We are honored to have you all here and extremely honored to have the one and only Ryan Gray on the show for the first time. I can't believe this. And it's like a PTG Coaches Show collab. We're sending it off. We're having a lot of fun on this one. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. I've talked with Marcelo several times about trying to get in from time to time, but our show was on Tuesday night. Now, of course, on Monday night. It's always been a challenge to try to find time to get it done, but I'm happy to be here now.
Yes, and we're glad to have you. I heard you guys are changing the day. Is that true? Are you guys going to a new day?
We have now gone to Mondays. So in Paris.
So have we. This is crazy. No,
oh my gosh, get out of here.
We actually have for like the next couple months, because Tyler's kids are in soccer. So now we're like, okay, we're going to try to work Mondays out. We bob and weave over here, though. We're not live, so we don't have a set. You know, it's whenever we can record is really the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. So it's so funny. We moved to Mondays. Like, we talked in Paris with Ryan a little bit, and there's so much good content right now that we don't want the viewers to have to make a decision about, like, do I watch this one while it's live or this one while it's live? And so Mike and I kind of talked about, like, hey, we're good to be on either night. Monday's a little bit tough, obviously, because traveling back from an event, you're tired.
Yeah.
But
I think people love Mondays. They're going to love that. Yeah.
But also, like, right after an event, people are searching for content, right? So there may be times that we move, like, hey, we can't, like, after World Cup, maybe we'll do Wednesday night instead of Monday night. But we don't want the viewers to have to constantly be choosing between one or the other. And based on the numbers from, last week was our first time doing it. Both shows were impacted from it. So it's a good move.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Move.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people can always go back and rewatch your show. The only downside is they can't interact with you guys, as you can if you're in the live thing. But if you, for some reason can't make one of the live episodes, go back and rewatch. That's actually how I consume, most of the live stuff, go back and listen, so yeah.
Yeah, while we're on the subject, we got to let the people know where they can follow you. You have the podcast going on, you have YouTube channels, Instagram, I think. Have you guys built out the Instagram?
Yep. So we do have an Instagram channel. In fact, it's going to get our social media is going to get a little better, especially with recent events. I'm going to more than likely take next year off. So last year, at the end of the year, I really wanted to take a year off. I had done, and Marcelo knows how this goes because he literally just did it. I was coaching in Europe and coaching in America. I was doing a few local events. I'd had enough. Like, I really needed a year to kind of decompress, and I wanted to work on the show. So I bought some equipment, and I've upgraded even since Paris, where I want to mic up some coaches and get some sound bites during matches. And it's easier when I'm not at the event as their competitor. I'm there just trying to highlight them and what they're doing. And so I'm going to build out some things for World Cup where I'm going to mic some coaches up, which is how this whole thing with Scout came about, which we'll get into later. But so you can get us on Instagram. We're at thecoachesshow.live, and then on Facebook, just the Coaches Show. And then you can find all of our content as far as the podcast versions on any podcast that will accept the video. So there are some that won't allow us to upload the video, and I don't like having to. I'm a little lazy, I guess. I have a real job. I don't like to have to download the voice and the video recording and then go back and upload those everywhere. So it's really Apple, Amazon, and Spotify are the three places that will allow
the big ones.
Video.
Yeah, those are the main ones. I mean, when we look at our analytics, that makes up 98% of the listeners, pretty much. Some listen on like the Google podcast or iHeartRadio. There's like a few, super random ones that we are on, but most of it's
we're
Apple,
on
Spotify, or YouTube.
Yeah, we're on iHeart, and that's the same thing I noticed is, like, if we go to this like video only thing, is that going to harm us? And it hasn't. So
no.
And then the YouTube channel, we're partnered with Major League Paintball, so you can jump right onto Major League Paintball, not Major League Paintball Plus, except all of our older episodes are on the Plus channel, which we're hoping they'll get those moved over in the next couple of months. But yeah, you can go right to Major League Paintball and find all of our
amazing
stuff.
And yeah, I do want to talk to you about that. How has it been? It's obviously a tremendous honor to be working with the league side by side, doing amazing content, and bravo to NXL and to everything that you guys are doing, because it's been phenomenal. All the content has been very fun, engaging, And it's eye-opening for a lot of players too. We're helping to, like we talk about, cultivating that future of the game, and NXL and the Coaches Show has done a phenomenal job with that.
Yeah, and it's really all the content. I mean, we're literally kind of riding on the backs of you guys and spick and span and doing what, just kind of filling in some holes, just with like content specific to certain types of consumers.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And the whole deal with Major League Paintball came about as it was a total accident. We were going to do the show and kind of on our own, and we started having some conversations. So Mike, Bianca, myself, Shane Pastana, we're doing this like really bad pre-event show at the events, and it was really bad. Like, we would show up and I'd say, okay, what do you want us to talk? Like, what are the key points you want us to make? What are the things you want us to highlight? And they'd kind of say, well, like, whatever you guys want to talk about. And we're like, so there's no purpose to this. We're just talking. And then we'd sit down and create a really quick show framework and try to make it work. But it wasn't good. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do very often, just because it wasn't good. Like, the content wasn't great. And they would literally get it posted on like Thursday or Friday morning. So the event's like starting, people know kind of what's already happening. And so it wasn't great. So we started talking about, Mike, myself, and Shane, about trying to do something where we could have it out a week or two earlier, where we could talk about the event and kind of, and this was also like at the end of my time. I knew the end of my time was coming with Austin Notorious. And so again, I was going to take a year off, and I was like, this will be even better if I'm not a coach, like if I'm not in the league in that way, because then some of the things that I don't say, I can say, right? So we started talking to Kevin Fillers, who's the CFO of Major League Paintball, about it. And he was like, man, that'd be cool. We're really trying to, we really want to add some new content to our platform. And maybe this is something we can do together. And that was like a month before we launched, and it just kind of died off. But I had like bought all the stuff to do it. I had learned about StreamYard, which is what we use as well. And started doing some things to kind of put the train on the rails, right? We weren't moving yet, but kind of to put the train on the rails where we can now start to move some content forward. And he and I were talking, it was actually October the 12th last year. He and I were talking about something else for World Cup that they were talking. I think it was about the 7-2, right? 7-2, 7-3 thing. And when I talk with Kevin, so I have an accounting background, and then I also I own an insurance agency here at my house. But we were talking through some of the insurance impacts with adding another day, and anyway, business stuff, right? We were talking about the potential impact to the vendors, because I've been in that world as well. And anyway, the very end of the conversation, I said, "Oh, and by the way, like Mike and I are gonna do this show. Like, we're gonna push it forward." And I had sort of been fishing for an opportunity to work with them, because it's just easier. They already have a subscriber base. Totally. Like, it would be a little easier for us to jump in with them. They also were going to help us with Jake, which I'll talk about Jake here in a minute. But so I just left sort of this dangling thing at the end of the conversation, like, hey, we're going to do this show, right? And then we hung up. 10 minutes later, I get a text from Mike Bianca that says, hey, I just got a text from Kevin, and he says we should do this show together. I was like, perfect. Perfect. Right. So it just worked out in a way that it was good for everybody. It was good for them. It was good. Obviously great for us. You guys started from scratch. You know how difficult that is to build your subscriber base and build your listeners. And obviously we made a ton of mistakes in the beginning.
That's fun. That's what it's all about.
Had no idea what we were doing. The technology was different.
I miss it.
Years old.
I miss it now, dude. Now
you're gonna love this, Ty. I for some reason I got in my car and my Bluetooth and phone were disconnected, so I had to reconnect it. And now every time I get in the car, it goes straight to my Apple Music playlist, which I never use. I use Spotify only, but it'll start playing. And like one of the things saved in my Apple playlist is episode 3 of this show for some reason. And it it's the raw version. So it's not the edited one that we put up. I don't even know why this is in there. So it starts with like the clap and the whole thing that we used to do kind of backstage. And it's hilarious. I actually listened to it for like 10 minutes the other day. I was like, oh man, we were so fresh and so like young with all of the different nuances that go into putting on a decent show that's palatable. But yeah, you're right. That is the fun in it. That's why we've enjoyed the journey as well. In the beginning, you really can't look at the numbers. It's kind of like when you're competing, you can't look at the results of winning. You have to look at the work it's going to take. And we did that, as far as like building a subscriber base, we weren't really concerned with how many people were listening. We set a plan and said, okay, we're going to do at least one show a week, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. And, this is the structure we want to lay out. Let's stick to that for forever until it works. It's not like, let's, do it for a couple months and see. No, let's do it until it works. Yeah. Rather than, 3 months in, we're not quite seeing what we thought we were by now. So let's change course. No, you lay out a good plan and you do it until it works. That's the formula right there, which we're going to get into in a little bit.
And that's kind of what we did, right? We sort of laid out this plan of like, this is the content we really want to produce, that we really want to put out. And it got jumbled in the beginning. We were doing a bunch of interviews and those kind of things, which we didn't love. That is part of it. That's you guys, right? You guys do those really in-depth interviews and you do it really well. And that's not really the content. We did want to highlight coaches, which we were able to do. But it was really getting into the methodology and the brain of the coach from lots of different perspectives. In fact, we're going to add some things as we move forward. We found some things that we think more practice content, right? Like we've talked a lot about tournament management and game management. We really want to get more into the practice process, right? To really be able to help provide some more resources and content for young coaches and teams to be able to understand better how to have quality practice. Like we've seen it so much, and this is really what spurred it is, we all practice each other, and I go practice some of these teams, and their coach would have he would have a pitch count almost of how many games they wanted to get through in a day. And I'm like, I get it. You want to get plenty of looks, you want to get plenty of scenarios, but it's better for us to, I think, organically just put ourselves into those scenarios where we can run like up down situation. Anyway, where it's more about the quantity than the quality, if that makes sense. And so we want to try to help to kind of create and cultivate a little different style of thinking around practicing. So
you see it all the time. When you start working with some of these divisional teams, you see it right away that just a little bit of direction and showing them how to put some intention to their practice, you could minimize the amount of points they play by probably 50% and get more production. Not saying you should minimize it by that much, but you can get double the production with half the amount of points just by kind of showing them what to look for, what to, don't just set a play just to set a play, have reasoning behind it, have an understanding with the whole group behind it, try to accomplish a few different little things in that play. If you accomplish those things and you still lose the point, doesn't mean the play is bad. Maybe it needs a few tweaks, and you can take things from that play and evolve and work with it. But yeah, we've noticed that just from, working with these divisional teams over the years. And so it's amazing. And I think it kind of speaks to how competitive, not only the pro division, but a lot of these paintball teams have gotten, because there is this, there is some great content out there. And the more that we put out, the more exciting it's going to get. And I would imagine it makes the teams and players that much more excited too, because they're having success from it. So the ones that are willing to listen to these shows and listen to people like you and Mike speak, I love listening to your guys' show. There's always great nuggets in there. It's such a fantastic, wealth of knowledge. It's allowing these teams to get excited about going to practice. I know when I'm interested, obviously I still have that passion for paintball, but there's nothing quite like being new in something and learning about it. So whether it was basketball 10 years ago or golf a few years ago or whatever it is, and you're kind of diving down the rabbit hole, there's so much information. You're like, I'm so excited to go to the driving range and try this technique. Like, let's see if what this guy was talking about works. I'm excited to go try it. And so that's what is being provided now to, young players and teams and organizations. And it's awesome.
And I'm so glad you said it in the way that you did, because it is those little aha moments when the light bulb goes off that as a coach, like makes you, that's the deal, right? That's the juice, is when you're working on a concept and you're putting teams and players through certain situations, and then it clicks and you're like, okay, we're good, right? Because it is intentional. It's not just, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to shoot this guy off the break. Great. You did it. Now what? What are you going to do with that? Which way would his gun have been when he got there? Was it inside? Was it outside? What is he stopping? What space is he covering? And then how do we take advantage of it? And having one other piece to what you said, having those really good conversations after you test something and it doesn't work, or it does work. More importantly, I think when it does work, having those really good conversations about why, right? And ingraining those things into the players, into the group. And again, not just the players who were on the field, but everyone participating and being a part of that.
Oh yeah.
I think is really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do want to start diving into everything that's going on. Obviously, there's a lot of news that has broke about Diesel. You're currently going to be coaching Scalp. Before we get into all that, I want to kind of dive into your backstory just for a moment, where you started, how this all began for you in the paintball game,
okay.
and then leading up, obviously, into the modern day of where we are right now.
All right, I've been around for a long time, so I'll try to keep this really brief. I started
First time on the show. We got to get the story.
Yeah, we got to get.
Everybody knows the rules.
Yeah, so I started playing in 1993. I was not a good kid. I was really aggressive. I had not found an outlet yet for kind of how I was going to get rid of all of that energy. And I got into a fight at school, and I was given some community service hours for assault. And again, I'm like,
how old were you? Yeah, okay.
15. Yeah, I was 15, like just old enough where you could really, when you hit somebody, hurt them. Before 15, like when you hit people, you don't really hurt them, right? But I just gotten to that point where when you hit somebody, you could hurt them. And I did the dude hit me with a full Coke can. In fact, I still have a scar on my eye from him hitting me. But once I got my wits back.
In high school, like at school or?
At school, yeah. Jeez. Once I kind of got my wits back, I don't want to say I blacked out, because that's not
for sure
really what happened. But like I got to a point where I had him by the back of the head and I was beating his head against this brick wall. And then I'm getting tackled by this giant police officer. And again, I'm like 140 pound, 15-year-old scrub, right? And this cop threw me around like a rag doll. Anyway, so I was mowing grass at a church, out there with a push mower in this giant yard, right? Anyway, the youth pastor comes over and says, hey, I'm taking a group of the youth to go play paintball. Do you want to go? And like any other, troublemaking kid, I was like, I need my hours. And he's like, come on, man. Like, I'll give you the hours for going. I just think it'd be good for you to be around some good people.
Dude, this is an original story, by the way. Finally, we have an original paintball story.
Wow, give him the applause.
Yeah,
give him the applause.
It's still a church group story, right? It's still a church group story. So anyway, and a buddy of mine happened to be there too, and so we go play. And it was one of the old survival game fields. So for those of you who don't know, like survival games used to be what all the paintball fields were called. There was survival games New York and survival games Dallas, and they all used to be survival games. They were all part of this, coalition collection of fields. Anyway, this was still one of the old survival game fields. There were only a few left at that time. Everybody kind of broken off and done their own thing, but man, it was awesome. Like shot 68 special, or SL68 2 pump guns and running around. And of course I'm, a troublemaking idiot kid. So like I just kind of ran around, and I shot a lot of people, but I got shot a lot too. And I had just an amazing time. Yeah. And there was a guy that worked at the field, who came over and he's like, hey, have you ever done this before? And I said, no, I've never done it. Like it's my first time. And he was like, man, there's a couple of fields around the area. You should check them out. Go try to play a little more often. I think this might be your thing. Anyway, so I started working kind of right away. And I was playing junior Olympic volleyball too at the time. So I was kind of splitting my time between work and volleyball practices. And then I would play paintball any weekend that I could. As soon as me and my buddies got cars, we started skipping school and going to the local paintball field and playing on the fields. But we would also, while we were there, like we'd change them, we'd fix them. Like we'd build bunkers and plug holes and stuff. And so there was a dog, the guy that owned the property, Foster was the guy's name, but he's not the guy that owned the field, but he owned the property. He had this giant Rottweiler
Of
called
course
Buster.
he did.
Yeah, giant. I mean, this animal was massive. And Buster would come over, like he would hear us down there and he would come over to the property and hang out with us while we were playing. He was a great dog, right? He was massive and he looked scary, but he was not at all. He was a giant teddy bear.
Yeah.
Well, we went out on a weekend. We had enough money for us to go play real, with all the other players. And so we were out there on a weekend. Buster jumps out of the back of Foster's car and runs over to us at our picnic table. And right away, Foster tells the field owner, whose name was Terry, these are the guys who've been here during the week. Right. So like now we're like, man, we're going to get thrown out. He's going to ask us to leave. But he comes over and says, hey, like you guys you've been here during the week. You're helping me and you don't even know it. Why don't you guys work here and you can play on Sunday and work on Saturday. And so that's what we did.
Nice.
Wow.
And that's kind of where we created a little 3-man team and started doing some local things, and an indoor field opened in 1996. An indoor field opened up, which created an opportunity for us to be able to play a couple of nights a week. So we were able to play like on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, and then go out to the field at Redlands and play on Saturday, and then work on Sunday, or work Saturday and play on Sunday. And so we were playing a lot. And then we started Tex Christopher, who was the captain of Texas Storm at the time. He came up and played a 3-man tournament where we were all reffing. And so he invited us down to the Texas Captains of Council events, which used to be the premier 10-man events in Texas, to ref. And so we went down and started doing that. And then in 1997, we reffed the World Cup. While we're reffing, we're using that money to play tournaments. So we're playing as many 3- and 5-man tournaments as we can. And then that kind of switched into, I was working in the restaurant business at the time. I was about to get my own restaurant in Tulsa. My wife and I drove to Tulsa to look at a house. And on the way home on the turnpike, I told her, I don't think I want to do this. Like, I don't think I don't want to work 100 hours a week and get paid for 50. And so anyway, we got back that Sunday night. I literally sat down, created a resume, sent it to like Bud Orr, Tom K, War Games, Airgun Designs, National Paintball, and then to PMI. And I got one phone call back, or I got two. Bud called me and was like, look, man, we're in California, and I don't know if you really want to live out here. And then Gino from National Paintball reached out to me, and I literally was on a plane Thursday, went and interviewed for a job, accepted it, and I was moving to Dallas within like 3 weeks. So our lives like flipped upside down.
Changed, yeah.
Yeah, and this is like now we're in like year 2000, right? But we had been playing from 97 kind of on. We didn't really ref as much. We started playing a lot more paintball. We were called the original paintball hooligans, and we played we played the GT we played anything we could drive and get to within 12 hours, because we had a guy that played for us who was a machinist and had to be at work at 6 a.m. So anywhere we could go where we could get him to work by 6 a.m., that's how far. So we did the last Jim Lively event in St. Louis, which was amazing to kind of be at Jim's last event. Again, we had to leave before we made the finals, but had to leave before the finals to get our buddy back to work. Yeah, but through playing,
so you're like about 22, 23 years old, 22. Working for National. Yeah.
20. So I hadn't quite started working for National yet. Through the GTS, we really got to know all the Texas Storm guys and the Addicted guys, and Dallas Speed and Adrenaline, all those guys. So the relationship, because we started meeting each other more as we got better, we started kind of meeting them more often in the finals. And so we got to a place in 2000, like our team was we were fine. Like we were starting to play some 10-man stuff. We went to World Cup that year and took third in amateur B, I believe. And then in 2020, 2001, the Texas Storm guys who'd broken off and became Bushwhackers wanted to recreate Texas Storm.
Real quick. 2001?
2001.
Okay.
Yeah, 2000 or 2001. It could be 99 that we played.
Yeah.
Could be 2000 that we became Texas Storm. So we ended up merging our team with the old Texas Storm guys who were on the Bushwhackers and came back. So like Lamar, Tex, Rodney Roberts, Jay Skilling. I mean, just like, dogs in Texas who had been around forever and ever. And so, yeah, it was 2000, I think, is when we did that.
We had the Bushwhackers on the West Coast as well, some of them out there.
So that's like they were all combined with all of those guys, right?
Yeah.
They became kind of the AMA team. And then I think for 1 year they played pro, maybe in 98 or 99. Yeah, that's a really long time ago. Yeah. It was 2000 because in 98 is when we played AMB in World Cup. And then in 99, we played AMA. So yeah. And then I played as Texas Storm. Those guys kind of fell off as soon as X-Ball became a thing in 2002. In 2006, my kids were both getting to an age where I couldn't be gone 35 weekends a year anymore. It just didn't make sense. So I decided at San Diego in 2006 that I was going to retire, and Roque knew I was still working for National Paintball, and Roque and I we were pretty tight. And he asked me to coach, and I said, no, I'm not a coach. And he was like, I think you're a coach. Cause I'd had basically for about 5 years, like every player who came out of the state of Texas, until X Factor went pro, came from Texas Storm. Blake Pruitt was kind of an anomaly in that deal. Like he kind of went pro and then came back to Texas Storm. But every other player, Colt, Dusty, Devin, Waylon Hancock, both Richard Gerald Garcia, Travis Dusek, they all came out of the Texas Storm camp. So Rocky,
I had the Garcia bros were on Oakland when I was just a kid.
Yeah, I'm still literally Gerald and I still talk.
Yeah, he's a man.
Twice a month. Yeah.
Yep.
He's gotten back into paintball. Will be at World Cup.
Yeah,
he's
stoked.
Yeah. So I went and coached the Naughty Dogs at World Cup that year. There were a few things Roque and I had to work out. Like, hey, while I'm there, because Rocky's a huge personality. Like, if you've not been around him and been in like a pit or a competitive situation with him, number one, he looks like a bulldog, right? He's not like, he's pretty scary looking dude, but kind of the first thing was like, hey, while I'm there, it has to be mine. Like you can't, there can't be this weird disconnect with the players about, what we're doing. And anyway, so I went out the weekend before World Cup. We played Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then a light workout on Tuesday. And I didn't know going in, they had never done better than 8th place at a PSP event. They had won that Smart Parts Open thing. But in other X-Ball formats, they had never done better than 8th place. And as we're going through the tournament, like we kept getting better and a little better and a little better. And Colt Roberts was on that team, was one of the other reasons I wanted to do it. Because there was, one of my guys from, really that I kind of brought up, when Colt came to try out with us, he was shooting an autococker and we're all shooting, electric guns, and he still just worked everybody.
Beast.
Yeah, he was
surprised.
He was a monster back then, did not miss his first shot. So we're getting kind of through the tournament. And as we're getting into Sunday play, like I'm starting to hear things from the guys, like, we've now been this far or we've not beaten this team. And I remember we played Dynasty and we beat Dynasty pretty handily at that event. Like got up a few points and then didn't have to change a bunch of things and just kept the lead as we went. And one of the guys was like, the only time we've beaten these guys is at that Smart Parts Invitational thing. Otherwise, we've not beaten them at these events. Nonetheless, we ended up getting second. So my very first professional coaching career was a second place at World Cup in the Pro Division.
Yeah.
Not bad.
He's not bad, right? And some luck, right? We all know, like, to get that far takes
a lot of things have to go your way.
Totally. And they did, right? Our paint was really good. Like the guys were really connecting well, playing well. Anyway, that offseason, I moved and went and coached X Factor, who had just turned pro at that World Cup in 2006. It didn't win a match. But then we came out, we did a lot of work in the off season, won the third event, which was Chicago that year. They had won also Huntington Beach to start the season. So it kicked off this really positive energy, positive vibe about a lot of the things that we had done during the off season. And we go win that third event. And then, if you've not seen the documentary, go check out BKI. The BKIT on Netflix. It's really good.
Yeah, the best kids in Texas.
Is it on Netflix or is it on Amazon Prime?
It might be on Amazon Prime now too, but it was on Amazon, then Netflix, then I think both of them.
I didn't know it made it to Netflix. That's fucking badass.
Yeah, it was on Netflix.
Wow.
But yeah, so then we kind of hit I think the guys felt like they belonged, and so the work became second to the being the status and excitement of being a professional paintball player was number one, and the work became second. So I would drive from Dallas to San Antonio, and there'd be 6 of the 12 guys at practice. There'd be 7 guys at practice. And so we hit this point where at the end of 2008, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm spending a lot of time away from my family, and it's just no longer, the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore. So I quit at the end of 2008. And then in 2010, recreated Texas Storm with Mark Johnson. And my 3 semi-pro guys were Mark Johnson, Derek Knight, and Sean Sacedo. And we picked up a bunch of Division 4 and 3 kids who now you guys all know their names. I mean, TJ Danner, Clint Johnson, Dylan Bewley, just a bunch of really, really talented young kids. Went and played the first year semi-pro, didn't do well, but then in the next year, won the series, went to the Champs Challengers thing the following year, did that for 2 more seasons. And then in 2015, my field, I had left National Paintball in 2010 and opened a couple of paintball parks and a couple of paintball stores. My main field that I funded the team with burned to the ground. I mean, it was it was gone. So I had to kind of start over at the field, which meant there's no money for me to help support the team. None.
Jeez.
So we disbanded the team in 2015. And also kind of right around that time. And anybody who doesn't know this about me, I'm an alcoholic. And it also around that time, like my drinking was really getting out of control. And so it's probably good on a lot of fronts that I wasn't going to be away from home, because that was always worse when I was away. So the team disbanded 2015. And at that point, I'm kind of done with paintball. Like, I feel like I've had enough. Like, I've done the things I wanted to do. It's time for me to, just sail away into the sunset. I bought a Jeep, started 4-wheeling, really just enjoying my time with family and not paintball. 2016, I sold the parks. And then in 2018, I got sober. And I started, you go through that process, like, you start to realize the things in your life that you have squandered, right? Like, the things that are really important to you that you wasted, moments that you don't get back, moments that you maybe not even remember. And I started getting this, I felt really selfish. When we understand the gifts that we get from this, I started feeling really selfish, and I knew at some point I was going to need to make some type of amends to paintball. Like, whatever that was going to look like, I was going to have to make some kind of amends. And then at the end of 2020, Mark Franz from Notorious just started beating up my phone and Facebook. He loves to talk on Facebook for some reason. And I hate talking on Facebook, but he just kept sending me messages, and I kept telling him no, because I number one, I didn't know that I wanted to bring another team through the ranks. I just didn't know if that's what I wanted to do. Because it's really hard, and you have to have it has to be the right group, a lot of times, I get it a lot. People ask what's the secret sauce? And I'm like, well, it's really hard work. But there are some pieces that you have to have that are the right mix of guys. Well, I went to this Virginia Invitational thing, kind of gave in that I would go at least meet the guys. And I went to this Virginia thing, and the guys played well, and they looked good. They were good with their guns. They communicated okay. And anyway, I decided I would do it. And so I sat in this hotel room, and I made a commitment to those guys that I would stay for 3 years if they would stay for 3 years, and that I promised them if they would do the things I asked them to do, that at the end of that 3-year time period, we'd be a pro team. And so that year we won Division II, and then the next year we won semi-pro. And so I really finished my work in 2 years, but because I made that commitment, I stayed for the 3rd year. But about halfway through the 3rd year, I knew it was time for me to go away. And then I was going to take this year off, and Mark Johnson, who, I've known for a long time, and I love Mark, and gave me the opportunity to coach AC, and I jumped. So that's the whole story. That's a really long story,
Wow.
but
we love it.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the game needs you, by the way, too. So please stick around for many, 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 many years to come, because we need people like you in this game. I'm not bullshitting you at all, Ryan. I think that if we had more people that cared the way that you do about the game, it would be a much better place. And obviously, I do want to jump into AC Diesel and talk about that. But you hit on a lot there. What you just talked about, there was a lot to unpack. And one of the big things that I want to ask you about is, you talk about how you've cultivated countless pros into phenomenal players. What are the details in the beginning that you see that let you know this player is going to be special? I found one, and I need to invest my time and efforts into this player so that they can fulfill what I see they have. How do you see that, or what is that?
Usually it's not about what I see, it's about what I hear in conversation. And it usually starts with thoughtfulness. Like you can really tell when players are, they're not physically just going through the motions physically. They're really trying to understand things differently. I get asked this question quite a bit, and I always talk about Dusty Odell. Dusty was one of the most intelligent, not just men, but also players I've ever had the privilege of coaching. And Dusty, I called it kind of the prairie dog. Like when he would stick his head up over a bunker and he would examine what's going on on the field.
I have this image in my head right now of him doing exactly that.
Yeah, there's countless videos, right? There's countless videos of him where you see him kind of pop up over the top of the bunker. He's examining what's going on, and then he goes and makes this move. And, sometimes he gets 3 or 4, sometimes he gets a penalty, right? But it's just, it was like this thought process, like he's really being thoughtful about what he's doing. He really wanted to better understand the game. It wasn't just about the physical things. It was really about the mental things, which again, kind of put him ahead of his time. And Colt was a lot that way as well. TJ Danner for sure is one of the most intelligent guys I've ever coached. Such a smart guy. Meter is that way, and has certainly evolved into that more and more. I thought his last performance was amazing. He played so well at the last event.
Yeah.
So as far as what I can look at and physically see, it's usually not about that as much as it is about the mindful part of it. If they're really thoughtful through the process, you can tell that's somebody who's probably going to go far.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And the formula as well. You talked about a formula for a group, building that formula. What does that formula look like? There's so many coaches that want to know that type of thing, right? Or start to understand that. For you, what does that look like? What does that formula look like for the group?
It doesn't necessarily have a look, but it usually has a feel. It has a feel and it has a sound. Like you can tell when you're in meetings, you kind of have your alphas and your leaders who are, again, kind of driving the conversation, but also including everyone in the conversation, not trying to dominate what's happening at meetings, trying to help keep everyone engaged and keep everyone on task and in the process. And then certainly on the field, when you can kind of close your eyes, but what's going on because the communication's so good, it has that kind of feel. But there certainly is, you have to have players who can all play pretty well in each spot, right? Like if you've got 5 snake eyes, you probably don't have the right combination of dudes. Now on today's layouts, if you have 2 other guys, you might be okay.
Yeah. It might work now. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you might be okay. It's like in the off season, Ryan Brand looks like the smartest guy on planet Earth, picking up, he's got 3 snake eyes. I'm like, what are you doing? And then I'm like, okay, you're really smart. Good job, guy. Good job. So having guys that can perform at, pretty high levels in each space, but then also having a couple of really good vets, right? Some guys that have been around a little bit, with Notorious, that was Mike Helkovar. Even the events that he didn't play well, he was still such a big part of what was happening in the pit and in the meetings, and really had a strong understanding of championship paintball and what did it need to look and feel and sound like. Which again, so much of that, as you both know, because you're world champions, isn't what happens in those 15 minutes on the field. So much of what occurs to get to that place is the 90% of the time that you spend away from those 15 minutes, right? It's the discussion, the analysis, the proper scouting, and then understanding how you're going to take advantage of things that you see, and, those really good conversations that you can have. So again, I don't know if there's necessarily a look, but there's certainly a feel.
You described it perfectly. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you can feel it when the tone is right, and all the pieces are laid out in the right way. It comes together and it clicks, and you can feel it and you can hear it. Just like you said, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I love what you said too about, first of all, Ryan, I want to thank you for sharing your story. That was probably one of the most interesting stories we've had on the show. I was one, a lot of the information was new to me, which doesn't happen often. And two, it was just really good. It was really enjoyable. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people are going to be excited to learn, that side of you and hear about your story. But into the building a team part of this, it's something we talk about on the show often. You mentioned, having the right pieces. That is, I think there's two incredibly important things. It's one, having the right pieces, but then two, as a coach, being able to put those pieces in the right spot on the field where they are set up to succeed, instead of trying to fit a circle into a square or a square into a circle, which happens often. I mean, I look around the league sometimes and I see players in spots and I'm like, on this layout, I just don't know why that player is playing in this spot. They would do so much damage in this spot, but I'm not going to go tell their coach that, that's for sure. How do you identify that in players, and how do you cultivate that? If you were able to build a team from scratch, what would it look like? What kind of pieces would you want? And how would you find, where players should play?
Yeah, that's a great question. And honestly, after coming out of what I just came out of, I really want to start over. Like, I want to build a new team. I really do. And not because that was so bad, because it wasn't. Well, I know we're going to get into that content, but like, I really would. I have found that, like, I enjoy coaching the guys who really know what they're doing. That's awesome. And you and I talked about this a little bit in Paris. Getting to coach the players who are coming in is such a different type of reward.
Absolutely.
When they have those aha moments, it's so special. And as a coach, when you're putting the energy in and you're doing the things that you're doing, that is the pay, right? That's the gift we get back, right? And that's why I love it. That's why I love doing it. So, when I watch players, because I like you, and in fact, we'll get into this when we start talking about AC. Sometimes as a coach, I have to play guys out of position for one reason or another, and it's painful.
Sure.
It's painful, right?
Sometimes you just want that player on the field, and someone else might be playing that position a little bit better, but you still want that. You still need that player on the field, so you find a spot for him.
Totally, right. And sometimes it's like, I know this is wrong, but I have to do it for this reason and this reason. Sure. They outweigh the wrong, right? They outweigh the wrong. So, but usually, like, when I see players, and it's funny too, how early and young now players are getting, like, shoehorned into these positions, which drives Mike and I have this conversation constantly. We'll go walk down the divisional field sometimes together, and we'll watch guys playing. And I'm like, that guy's not a 2. He should not be there. He needs to be up there. Like, we want to go grab him and be like, hey, how many times have you played up there? How many times have you let that guy? Maybe that guy needs to be behind you, because you're that guy. Like, your intensity and some of the moves you're making out of here, that needs to happen up there, because when you go make them from here, now you're leaving that guy in a potential 2-on-1, and you got some other problems. So, but usually it's like, you can see kind of in their physical ability, and then again, how much thought is going into the game. How much thought are they really having? Like, your more thoughtful guys usually end up being kind of your 2s and 3s. or potentially that guy who's going to go up into the center of the field, just because that's such a, you have a mathematic problem when you get up there almost every time, right? The equation is going to be, needs to be repaired, or you're potentially screwing it up as you go up, and you got to fix it really fast. But then also it's like Michael Johnson and I were kind of talking about this from Notorious. Michael's from here in Oklahoma, and he's kind of grown up around me, and I'm so excited for him to have his opportunity in the pro division. But he talks about this all the time, about like wanting to like speed up the process of like, he wants to get better so fast. And I'm like, hey, that's awesome. But you're not, and they've just Chuck now, their new coach, Chuck Latham, who I think is doing a great job. He's moving him around because like he's good in the snake, but I really think he's probably better on the Dorito side. He needs to be over there. But because he's fast and he's small, he's been a snake guy. That's just where teams have always put him, because he's fast. He can make it. But I really think he's probably better on the Dorito side. You know, he's really good on his feet. He communicates well. He processes the information quickly. I think he's probably going to be, better over there. But I don't know that it's something that's just like, oh, I see this, so he's that, right? As much as I do think once you spread guys out and you get them to play all over the place, you begin to see like, oh, that player's really thinking through things, and maybe isn't reacting fast enough to be in the front. Maybe he needs to be in the 2 so that he can slow things down a little bit, process the information, and then make decisions. Especially on the layouts we have now. Like if you're a 1 and you're wanting to process a lot of stuff, you're probably in trouble.
For sure. Yeah. Okay.
Real quick, Ty. Like I feel like a lot of it, the way that I've coached Wrecking Crew and the Misfits and even the Lucky 15s is, rather than trying to identify players as a snake player or Dorito player, I like to see, like you said, how quickly they like to play, what kind of pace they like to play, how thoughtful they are. And that actually means that it could change based on the layout where they play. Some snake sides are really methodical, and it's not just get in and go down. So if I have a player that just loves to get in the snake and go down, but that's not that side, and the Dorito side's really fast, he's going over on the Dorito side for that layout. Because that's where we could get, a ton of production. I did it all season long with the Lucky 15s and move them around that way. So to me, I really don't think it is about identifying as a snake or Dorito side. You have to be able to look at a field layout and decide what a side is going to dictate. If it's going to be fast or methodical, that's pretty much the 2 main factors. Some players like to be able to check things off. Some players are willing to just blindly go. And each layout is different. Like you could have a Dorito side 1 event where you can go through a checklist and easily get to the 50 quickly by going through your checklist. And then you have another Dorito side where there's like 4 or 5 spots that you can never check off. You just have to be willing to say, screw it and go.
Right.
Those are 2 different players. So if you can't make that adjustment as a coach, you're going to struggle from event to event, and the layout is going to dictate how your team does. But if you can kind of foresee that, you can move those players around, and that's kind of what I mean about being able to put players in the position to succeed. Like it's not cookie cutter anymore, especially maybe back in the day, each side was similar. Snake side was always kind of like the snake side. Get in, go down is what it is. Dorito side was always kind of methodical. The layouts have just changed so much that now it's different. It's not like that. So I try to put players on a side of the field based on their style of play and how I think that field is going to play. Not always right. Doesn't always work, but a lot of times you do get success from that. And it's funny, the pushback I've had from probably Lucky 15s the most, because they were a already established pro team and they had a bunch of success, early. So they're like, why am I playing over here? I'm like, just trust me a little bit, like I promise you, you're going to like this side. I promise. And then sure enough, as the practices went on and then at the end of the event, they're like, man, you're onto something. I love that. And I'm like, like it's just kind of about looking at it a little bit deeper than, you are this one thing. Because paintball is not like other sports where positions are always the same. It changes every event because of the layout. We have an ever-changing thing here. So it's almost a positionless sport, but it's not, and so it's interesting. I think it really adds a unique level to coaching.
Yeah, the layout, the topography of the ground, the layouts on, like it's
totally.
You never know what you're going to get, man. Well, you practice one layout and then you get to the tournament. You're like, okay, that shot's not there anymore.
Not there. Yeah.
Now we got a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. And that alone, it comes with a lot of experience, just understanding that when you're practicing something, having the flexibility in your mind to say, okay, when we get to the event, this might not be there. So let's be prepared for that. And let's also look for it as soon as we get to the event. Like as soon as we get to the event, I go to the field and I look at all the shots that I thought were going to be there and some that I thought, might not be there that we were using. And you figure that out right away. You don't wait until after the first game where you're like, I can't hit this person anymore. I don't know what's going on, but I can't shoot it. You need to foresee that stuff. In divisional teams, you know what field you're going to be on. Sometimes you're on more than one. Go look at all the shots. You should understand. And it's different from side to side. So understanding, for us on the pro field, it's like, hey, from the left side, like Vegas was a good example. From the left side, you can make it was easy. It was harder to make that snake. From the far side, you can make it. And if you don't know that as a coach or as players, you're really, really at a disadvantage because you're going to be running into guns when you shouldn't and maybe not taking the bite when you should, all these things go into play, which makes it really interesting to me.
Yeah, we got a very unique game, and it is the most fun game. And Ryan, we got to dive into obviously the meat and potatoes of this thing. What has happened? Why was the decision made to leave AC Diesel? And then we'll get into you coaching for Scalp as well. But we'll just start there.
Yeah. So I want to clean up the narrative a little bit. So Mark and I talked it's about a week and a half ago on Thursday, because I was leaving to go. I still go four-wheeling every chance I can. And I was leaving to go to Missouri to go four-wheeling. So he'd called me and said, hey, I think we made a decision. We're not going to bring you to the World Cup. And, gave me a few reasons. I'm too mean. I didn't get to 6 guys fast enough. Yeah, those were the 2 main reasons. I didn't get to 6 guys fast enough and I'm too mean. And then Mark and I, again, we're friends. Before any of this, we're friends. Yeah. Right. So I said, and I told him, even at the event, I said, hey, look, if it's time for us to part ways, I want you to know, the phone call you make to me is going to be the easiest phone call you've ever made. Because I care about our friendship more than I care about coaching this team. So that's not going to be, I'm not going to make that hard on you. If that's the decision that needs to be made, I'm totally good with it. Because we'd hit this place where I didn't think we were getting any better. We'd lost all these matches by 1 point, and there seemed to be if it was me not giving the information correctly, where they understood the moment, hey, there's this much time left on the clock. Here's the things that have to happen, and here's the things that can't happen. But then to watch us go out and not perform those things or get a bad penalty or and that's the other thing, it became easy as I was in goal, kind of in that environment, to start to blame external factors. And that's not me. That's not who I am. I'm, we talked about this a little bit in the green room. I'm a very disciplined person. I do the things I think I need to do every day to put myself in the right frame of mind, physically, in a good place, because it worked yesterday. You know what I mean? I was really happy yesterday because I cold plunged. I went to the gym. I took a hike. I ate really good food that wasn't processed with nasty things. Had great talks with my wife. You know what I mean? So I did those things yesterday. I should probably just do that today because it worked yesterday. So I'm going to do that again, right? I just recreate the process. Yeah. So I had even gotten to this place where it was really easy to blame the referees. And I want to be clear. I do think they're now participating too much in the games. When they sped the games, when they made the layouts the way that they've made them with bunkers 5 feet apart, and guys are making moves and the refs don't switch who they're looking at. And I could go into depth about this, but I don't really want to waste that time. But I even got to a place where I was like, man, it seems like the refs are always involved in our games. And unfortunately they are, but they're also involved in lots of other people's games too. Right. And so you've got to do the things that you can control. You got to control those things, and you can't blame those external factors. Right. That's the reality of the game. So he'd kind of told me, hey, I don't think we're going to, I asked him, well, who's going to coach? And he was like, man, I'm going to player coach. Kyle's going to help me. And I was like, Mark, that never works. Like, it doesn't work. You guys tried it last year at World Cup. It doesn't work. If really the thing is that I'm not, like, if the side part is that I'm mean, but the thing is I'm not getting to the 6 guys you need fast enough, you call the lines. I'll do everything else. I've prepared you well for the events. We've been prepared going into every tournament we've played, other than the first one. And that's a whole different story, but we've been prepared for every event we've played. The game plan has been good. We're losing that shit by 1 point. And if you think that's because I'm not getting to 6 fast enough, no problem. You call the lines and I'll do everything else. And he was like, that might work. Right. So I was like, hey, I'm leaving this afternoon. This is probably a deeper conversation that we need to have, but unfortunately I'm leaving to go to Missouri this weekend. Let's talk Monday or Tuesday. And so that was last Monday. So last Monday I call him, he doesn't call me back, doesn't answer the phone. And then on Tuesday I called him and he said, hey, I'll call you on my way home from work. And I get up early and so does he. So I was pretty early when I called him, like 8:30. I think it was right after the gym. Anyway, that afternoon I sent Vince a message and just said, hey man, I don't know if I'm going to World Cup with Diesel. Here's what I'm some stuff I'm trying to collect for the show. I'd love to, mic you up. We kind of talked through some of those things and then we finished, right? We finished the conversation and I kind of moved on with my day. Like 30 minutes later, he sends me a message and he was like, hey, like things just sort of clicked. If you don't go to World Cup with Diesel, I'd really like you to come with me. And I was like, well, I said, hey, I really appreciate that. Before we even have that conversation, I need to talk to Mark. Like, I'm not the guy who, I think it's scummy to have a plan before does that make sense? Like, I don't want to have something in the back of my mind that's saying like, well, you have this other option, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that. And I think that's a little dirty. So I just said, hey, if that comes up, number one, thank you. I appreciate you even bringing that up. But if that comes to be, you and I can talk about that later. But for now, I'm still just thinking.
Put it on ice for now. Yeah,
for sure. Here's what I think I want to do with the show. Well, so we get through that night. Mark doesn't call. He doesn't text, nothing. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I can't just hang around up in the air. Like, I've got to make some decisions. I've got to move forward. And so the next morning when I got up, still no text, no call, no nothing, I made a decision. I sent Vince a message and said, hey, doesn't appear that AC needs me. So let's talk about what World Cup could look like with the both of us. And because I do have, I have boundaries that I'm not willing to cross, right? Both professionally and morally, that like, if I can't be helpful in a way that I feel like suits my talents, I don't want to be there because I don't want to get in the way of what they've done. I mean, that group, won the entire series in Europe and didn't drop a match, right? Like, I don't want to be in the way of that. Like, I want them to continue to do what they're doing. And if I can add value to that, that's where I want to be helpful. Had a great conversation with Vince and that's where we ended.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, Ryan, I want to touch on the Diesel thing because part of it, from an outsider looking in, and this is just my opinion, I don't believe that, and maybe you were part of this, I don't believe you guys were realistic with a time frame, because watching the team, and the only reason I'm surprised to include you in that, but the only reason I do is because you started by saying you didn't think you guys were getting better. And I really disagree with that. And maybe that was out of context.
I should have said at the pace in which Mark really felt like we needed to be getting better, we weren't getting, I think Mark really felt like we should be competing to win tournaments right away. Right.
It's just not how it.
I know. And I understand. For me, it was a 3-year project. Yes. I want to be here for 3 years. I think that's how long it's going to take for me to get to know everybody, understand the culture, make changes to the locker room, and get us where we need to go. I knew it wasn't going to be for me, it wasn't going to be a 1-year thing. Like, and Mark and I had talked about kind of what the offseason was going to look like. He was going to let me manage the roster, which I was super excited about. I'd already been looking at some pieces I thought could be really helpful. So when I say we weren't getting better, because I know we were, I keep all the data.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I keep all the
Absolutely.
data. We were plus
Yeah.
bodies off the break every event we played except for one. Like coming out of last year where the group was minus 13 off the break at the end of the year to this year where we have not had a tournament yet where we were less than +6. So I knew some of the key pieces that I wanted to change were getting better. We were still really bad with communication, but I felt like we were getting better, just not at the pace in which the group, and I shouldn't just say Mark, it was the group. They all felt like we should be getting way better. And I know some of those guys, like for Mouse, this is really tough. A guy who's been a champion, you know, who's got high expectations, not only for himself, but the team he plays with. It's really, really tough. And so I felt like we were getting better. I thought the tempo change we had going into the last event was really good for us. I think we played at playing at that higher tempo covers up your communication deficiencies. And that helped quite a bit. So I appreciate you saying that, because I do think we were getting better, just not at the pace they wanted.
Yeah. You look back at the last 3-4 years, the teams that have won: Dynasty, Damage, Heat, Impact, Red Legion. Ironman had that 2020 win, kind of an outlier. The teams that have actually won events, the core of their groups have been together or had been together for 10 plus years.
Decades. That's right.
We're talking about a level of experience and chemistry that you can't just forge. You can't just come in and all of a sudden, say, okay, this is going to be our culture. We're going to implement all this stuff in practice. And 3 events in, it's not working. It's not how it goes. Dynasty, we went on, and Tyler, you were part of this, and you were part of the come up as well, from like 2016 to, we won the one tournament in 2017, but really from 2016 to early 2020 was a big struggle for the team, and we didn't change a lot of pieces. We would bring in 1 or 2. I think that's always healthy for a team to bring in 1 or 2, new pieces, but the core stayed together for a very long time. And obviously before 2015, the core had been together for 15 years. So the group had found an identity and chemistry and way to play with each other over a long period of time, and then goes on a epic run. That is Damage right now. That core has been together for so long. So when it's, late Sunday or even early Sunday, that group just has the belief that they're going to be able to win together. They've earned that. It takes a lot of time. Watching Diesel, especially this last event, it was like, man, you guys are so close to getting over that hump. So close. Yeah. And it's, you have a 1-point game against Impact, a 1-point game against X Factor that, again, gets decided by a penalty. And I believe, the team kind of took that poorly and didn't come into Saturday the way I expected to see. I thought for sure you guys would go 2-0 on Saturday. Agreed. But sometimes tough to do when you have too high of expectations for yourselves and the goals aren't actually realistic, and Mouse, I think, should understand that as well. Being a world champion, being able to really understand how much time it does take. You can't go to a completely new team. All those players on Diesel are relatively inexperienced at the pro level when you're comparing them with these other organizations. You know,
they're 5-year pros.
Yeah, right. Which is nothing in today's game, nothing. And in paintball, it's the pros that have been playing the longest are actually the best. In most other sports, you have rookies and sophomores that come in and they can be the best very quickly. That's not the case in paintball. So understanding that, it's like Diesel keeps going through these cultural changes, because that's what a coach's responsibility is to come in and bring in culture and implement a system that over time you get better and better at. And I think they continuously, I think they did the same thing with Hinman, to be honest. I think that was too early.
Yeah, it's funny you brought him up. Like, so as soon as the news broke, it was the first phone call made to me was Mike Hinman, or text, and he sends me his text, and he was like, man, he's like, I really thought you guys, he said the same thing. Hey, I really think your group was getting better. And, and then he kind of made a comment about him, myself, and Rich Telford. And like, do you think potentially like some of the newer pros just aren't the same? They're not as gritty, if you will, as the older guys who I don't sugarcoat things. I have a hard time like fluffing things up to make them warm and fuzzy. I just don't like, I don't have time, if that makes sense. Like I would rather tell you exactly what I'm thinking. Here's what I see. Here's what the data shows. Here's what's happening. Here's why you're not playing, and move on, rather than have to have this like 30-minute kind of conversation around like, oh, I mean, I still think you're a really nice guy and you're really handsome and I'm sure your mom loves you. And like all of this kind of fluff that has to, and again, it shouldn't have to, but I feel like sometimes that's sort of, because I was nicer to Diesel than I've ever been to any other team I've ever coached. I was nicer to those guys than any other team I've ever coached. I mean, and by far, like it's not even close, right?
Maybe you should have been a little bit meaner, you know?
Maybe, right?
Even.
And then I'm gone in the second event and I don't have the heartache I'm dealing with now. Right?
I think a good coach has the right balance. I mean, if you don't ever express frustrations, then it's hard to, you know, kind of quantify the moment. But
and I was just being playful, by the way.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah,
but my point in all this is, and it really is, but Mouse is one of my best friends. And, you know, for a while, obviously we've been great competitors most of our careers. We've been teammates as well. So, you know, when he first went to Diesel and they're not having success, you know, of course I'm rooting for it, because you look at another super team, you're like, yeah, you know, I don't want you guys to have success right away. I want to beat you guys. But then it got to a point to where, no, I want Mouse to have success and I want Diesel to have success for multiple reasons. One, I see the struggle over there, but two, I really appreciate what Mark Johnson has done. Again, any paintball patron that wants to come in and offer real life-changing payments to paintball players, I really appreciate and I fully support. So I want them to find the success. And so to see things that from the outside perspective looks like an obvious no-no that is going to just hurt the organization even more. It's like, man, this isn't the right decision. I really did feel that way with Hinman. Again, like I don't think ownership looked at that situation objectively and realized, look, that team went into Philly last year and they actually looked scary. I believe they lost a 1-point game to you guys on Sunday, Tyler. Right. Mm-hmm. And they looked like a team that could compete and make a deep run. Then J-Rab gets hurt, you know, and they go into Chicago, and actually the first few matches, Mouse is playing like on another level in that snake. And it looks like they're still going to make a Sunday run, and then Mouse gets hurt, you know, and so he had to kind of play the two, and he sat a little bit. And so I don't think they made Sunday. And then they go into World Cup and still looked decent. You know, well, they let Mike go. They go into World Cup. They still look decent. J-Rab was kind of hobbling around, and then they let J-Rab go. Apparently he was the problem. And you just have all these moves that I feel like are so brash and quick, you know, and there's not enough leeway or flexibility for this thing to actually breathe and grow. And it's like, man, and then they bring you in. And I think again, all year, like Diesel, outside of the Hurricanes, Diesel was our toughest game, I think, in Vegas. I believe you were our first match. We weren't your first match. But I remember like we almost lost that match to you guys. Yep. You know? And then again, you're losing all these really close games to teams that are winning events. Like eventually that group gets over the hump. That's what happens. You just have to be patient with it and not rush it.
And I'm so glad you said a couple of those things, because I want to talk about those. One, the amount of money that Mark Johnson has spent in the last 2 years is unreal, right? It's unbelievable how much money he's spent. And again, to not get again to the place where I think he thought he needed to go. And it's one thing when you do what Shock has done, where you bring in kind of a fresh group and you can create your culture from scratch. But when you have kind of a core group that maybe you think your culture is good, and then you add all of these other pieces to it. And I'll use J-Rab as an example, because that was my decision to let J-Rab go, and I'll explain why. I wasn't a part of any of their practices. I didn't get to see anything that kind of happened there. All I saw was what I saw from the side of the pit at events, and then what I saw in film. And what I could see was every time J-Rab would come back into the pit, his finger was always pointed away from him, and he's given everybody the business. I stood off to the side in 2 of their matches at 2 events, so 4 matches. And I listened to how J-Rab was interacting with his teammates. And I was like, you can't have that. Like, we can't do that. And he's even referenced it, you know, kind of in his interview with Maddie about, you know, probably some of those decisions weren't good. And they weren't, right? So, but again, keep in mind, like as an outsider looking in, I don't know the culture before he got there. All I can see is this, right? And then having conversations with the guys about like, hey, so tell me about your interactions with other guys on the team. What's good? What's not good? What kind of changes need to be made to help fix the culture of the group a little bit? And I don't want to say it was unanimous, but it was pretty close that like, hey, I don't want to play with him anymore. I can't do it. And so that decision kind of had to be made. But again, like now having been a part of it, I do, with some of the guys that have left the team, I do think that they were maybe brought into an existing problem and then that exacerbated. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Exacerbated kind of maybe their demons a little bit, where you have kind of the Indians running the tribe a little bit. And I want to be clear that Mark, I believe wholeheartedly 100% that Mark Johnson is doing everything he can to make the decisions that he and his group think are the best. Right.
Of course.
Now, the problem with that is, I think a little bit is that at some point you've got to be the leader. Like it doesn't matter necessarily if the tribe is saying one thing, you have to think about like, are those emotional things that they're saying? And this is where I got with them at the end for sure. I started realizing like, these are all, none of this is real. These are all emotional things. Like you guys, I keep the data. We are getting better. Like things are coming together. We're not really far away. We're actually really close. We don't need to make these giant wholesale changes. We need to make small little tweaks that are intention based in the middle of games, not at the end of games, in the middle of games. Now at the end of games too, like if there's 11 seconds left and you need to go run and touch the flag and you're still alive at the end of the game, I got a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which happened twice. Mm-hmm. I got a problem. But like they're not these are not things that are like, we got to make wholesale changes. We got a huge problem, right? Our thing is falling apart. But what happens is as the chirping gets louder from the popcorn gallery, Mark begins to start to take notice of some of that. Like, hey, I'll just put it out there. Jesse and I had a really bad conversation Saturday night in Houston. It started off really good, but then he drugged me into kind of this emotional place where I don't go as a coach. I just don't go there, especially about playtime. I'm not going to do that about playtime. We want to talk about your family or my family, and it needs to be emotional. Let's talk about that. But if we're talking about playtime, I'm going to show you the numbers. We're going to talk through it. I'm going to tell you some things that you're going to get some new opportunities tomorrow, but here's the things I have to see. And if I don't see those, you're probably not going to play much. And it literally got to a point where I was like, Jesse, maybe you just need to go pack your stuff and go home. Like if you can't understand that the team is more important than your playtime, then it's probably time for you to go away, right? As long as I'm here. And so that was actually that was one of the things that was pointed out to me. That conversation specifically, I was too mean. I should have been more flowery, I guess. And, bullshitted the kid into continuing to be selfish and, make those kind of decisions. But that's not who I am as a leader. Like I'm going to tell you, this is what I think from my history of doing this, that if you continue down this path, you're probably going to end up going the wrong direction. But if you can change your thinking a little bit and go this way, I think you're going to be in a really good place. But, it was really tough. Early on, I was told, that there were certain guys I wasn't giving them enough opportunities to play. I would get the roster would narrow too quickly. And then at the end, I'm being told, you're not narrowing the roster fast enough, but hey, these two guys still didn't get to play enough. And I was, it's like, I don't know.
A lot of voices, and that is what it feels like from the outside looking in too, is that nobody can really come in and take control of the situation, which is going to, make it really difficult for that group to find their footing. And it's a shame again, because, one, I haven't even mentioned, but I like Mark Johnson a ton as a person too, seeing him overseas and his dedication to the game and, the conversations I've had with him, with Team USA. I want the dude to have success too, and again, to provide that platform for professional players. Like we want as many of those types of people in paintball as possible, obviously. but goodness, have a little patience with these processes. It takes time. You've got, in my opinion, Mouse is one of the best players to ever play the game. You know, he's one of the sharpest ever, hands down.
Amazing.
You know,
Yeah, he's amazing.
You have that talent. Like, do this the right way. Do it the right way. You know, make sure that you have the patience with it. It's not, you're not going to be able to bring in one player and all of a sudden have success. And, you know, you did mention Shock, and we touched on this earlier, so I want to tie it in. Shock, yes, they were able to bring in all these, you know, players and kind of build culture from scratch. But in my opinion, and I said it as soon as the team was constructed, obviously they already had success. So I had a little cheat code from the 2020 year. I think they have the right mix of players. They have a good mix, you know, when New York, everyone is so surprised about New York Extreme. And I mean, I'm surprised they're as far down as they are. Part of that is injuries, but I knew they were going to not be the same team they were last year because they lost Corey Hall. What Corey Hall provides you from a team standpoint is he could play a side, the Dorito side, pretty much all by himself and control that side. He might not be the most like dynamic and aggressive player, but he can control that side and mitigate damages so that the rest of your guys can go and have success elsewhere. And he did that for New York Extreme to, you know, a whole season. That last year, their success was heavily reliant on his performances. So Shock has that guy. They have A-Rod, who's an amazing shot on the break, and then it's going to be a bully. You know, like you always have to worry about him. Then you have someone like LJ Parrish, who's a weapon. You could put him on either side, and he's just going to go. He's just going to go, period. And then you have Thomas Kim, who's the steady mind and steady hand. That guy can play any position, and he plays it really well. He's consistent. He's not going to hurt your team, and he's going to save games, right? And then now, you know, Hosky has filled in that role, and he's the only player that I didn't know much about, but he's done an excellent job of also just continuing to go forward. And so you
just getting better.
Yeah. And he's just getting better. So, you know, the team is constructed really well. Their starting five is constructed really well. It's really balanced. I don't believe that Diesel is very balanced. You know, I don't believe that you have all the right pieces there. And it's kind of lopsided in some positions. It's like if you look at your fantasy football team and you get a grade, it's like, okay, my wide receivers are an A+. You know, oh shoot, my quarterback, we're down at like a C, and I'm just making stuff up. I'm not attacking any players.
Yeah.
You know, your tight end, it's like a D, you know? And so you've got like the A+ in one category, and then you're just missing other stuff. And so it makes it difficult. And then I think that is what has forced you, when you were coaching them, to kind of maybe put players, you know, quote unquote, out of position. Totally. So it's a whole thing that is kind of, you know, causing the group to struggle, in my opinion. Now, I do believe that Diesel has the players in the positions, but they're the less experienced. They're the original Diesel guys that just need a little more time. They're getting better and better. They just need a little more time.
Yeah, like I always felt like we needed, like our Dorito side was really weak most of the time, right? Yeah. Which is really what bringing Rene Rodriguez in, that was one of the, and even last year, you know, before I took the job, I watched every single game they played. I statted every single one of them. So I watched them multiple times. And even last year, like, they were just weak on the Dorito side. They did not have that guy who could go down that, like Ice is that guy, but he'll do it later, right? He's not going to be the guy who does it first. He's the guy that's going to do it second. And he's really, really good at it. He's very talented. Yep. But I got to have a guy that I can put in front of him that I trust to do the job well, and that isn't going to get penalties. You mentioned it earlier, and I kind of smiled. I don't know if you saw it, talking about the guy who will go down the side and not check off.
Yes.
Right? Like, hey, there's a guy in the middle of the field. They're screaming it. I can hear them yelling it. That guy that's in the middle, if the guy heads up isn't playing you, there's a reason why he's not playing you, because they want you to go, right? They want you to come. So Rene was kind of sliding into that role, and he played well at the last event. Rene played good. He played great at practice. He was kind of getting some more opportunity. But again, that's not somebody who's going to come in and be that guy right away. It's going to take him 2 seasons, 3 seasons to understand the difference in tempo and, you know, how things need to work. But I will say, and this is total opinion, but just from being a part of the group, the best thing that could happen for Diesel is for Mark Johnson to retire from playing and coach the team.
Own the role.
Because already, like right now, if he's got their ear already and they have his, the best thing Mark can do for his group is to not play, focus on being a really good coach, because I do think Mark could do it, and
Yeah.
be the coach, because then he doesn't have to try to, he's in a very unique situation trying to be a player who's going to war with these guys and then also be the owner. He's in a really, really difficult situation because the emotional connection to the guys as you go through those challenges, you guys know this, regardless of what teams you play on later, you're still friends, right? And a lot of that because of the challenges and struggles and barriers that you've been able to break down on the field. You know, you get that kind of connection and bond in a really my wife and I work out every morning together for that very reason. Yeah. That's really important to us, to be able to struggle together right off the bat in the morning. When we have little arguments throughout the day, when you've done the gnarly shit we do in the morning, it's none of it matters, right? You're like, this is a really stupid thing we're talking about. Like, it's just, there's no sense in this being a fight. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
So Mark is in this really unique situation where he's
especially because in my opinion, he still provides a lot of value on the field. He has some really great moments out there. So
good player.
Yeah,
he's a good player. He's a good player, but just from a leadership perspective, the best thing that could, in my opinion, the best thing for Diesel would be for Mark to put down the gun, pick up the clipboard, and coach the team, because he's kind of the guy they're following anyway. So just pick it up and do it. You know, it's obvious now. I'm the fifth coach that they've had in 2 seasons between Greg Pauly, Gel, Mike Hinman, myself, and Mark Johnson doing it at World Cup, that you don't have a coaching problem. You don't have a coaching problem. You have a culture problem. You have some leadership issues that you need to get worked out. And you certainly have some personnel things that need to change. If you want to find the success I think you're searching for, which is also hard for a guy who's on the field with you to make those decisions, to cut guys.
Yeah,
you know, it's really hard.
Speaking of that, Ryan, can you shed any light? It's okay if you don't want to, but what was behind the thought process of letting Cody go?
I don't know. I was not a part of that discussion. I thought Cody played really well. Again, he's a guy I had to play out of position a few times and put him Dorito way because we were weak there. And also, you know, it was tough too, because I need that back center guy, especially at the last event, to be able to go either direction. And I really didn't want Cody to end up as the one on either side. I needed him to be able to be a voice, you know, which ultimately might not have, I should have probably just said, hey, we're going to run with you in the back center and we're going to play this 2-1-2 and just see how it works. But at practice, it worked well. I mean, having him play that way worked well. Flying Kyle and Clint and Clint was also injured, which sucked because I had a formula after Dallas. I had Mouse, BJ, and Clint in this 3-man rotation on the snake side that was working really well. I had Jesse, Ice, and a combination of Kyle and Cody in this 3-man operation on the Dorito side. And then going through the gut, I could throw Renee, I could throw Mark Johnson, and I could move Cody to either spot. Well, Clint gets an injury going into Atlantic City. He hurt his ankle in the snake. So now I got to keep him on his feet. So now I'm in that place again where I'm looking for that other piece that can be on the snake side, which meant moving Ice over there. And he played well at practice. I moved BJ from that side to the Dorito side, and he played much better on his feet than he did down on his face. And then, you know, so with Atlantic City, we were in kind of a bit of a scramble because of injury. But yeah, I played Cody out of position quite a bit because I felt like we were weak over there. And that's also what the data said. You know, it showed like, hey, this guy's getting shot out of his spot a lot. Like I need somebody who can be strong. Like Cody's so good behind his gun. I was like, I can put him out here. If he's left in a 1-on-2, we're okay still. You know, again, kind of like Corey, he may not go win the side, but he's certainly going to slow it down enough that the guys that are on the snake side, because they're really, really good, should be able to go win the game. I don't understand the Cody thing. I thought he was really helpful throughout the year. I think he made great points. I think he really solidified our close, especially when I could play him as the 3. I thought he was really good. So, and he was exceptional off the break. He was exceptional off the break. So I don't really understand. I don't know the decision there. Cody and I've talked a lot since since last week. I'm really happy for him to land where he did. He had a couple of options literally right away, which I knew he would. He got a couple of options, and I think the one he chose is good for him.
I do too. I think he again, personnel wise, fits what that team needs, and hate that they're in our bracket at World Cup. You know, it's interesting thing. But I think he makes them stronger for sure.
Yeah, and especially with Clint too being kind of a question mark with his ear, right? Like it's a good pickup for them because I think he can kind of fit into that role that Clint was playing, you know, of the 2 on either side or the back center. And I thought it was a good pickup. Smart.
Yeah. For everybody that doesn't know, Cody made the move over to Revo and will be playing with them at World Cup. And then what happened to Clinton Moore's ear?
He got shot in the ear pretty bad in Paris and blew his eardrum.
No.
Yeah, it was in the finals. It was a huge bummer.
I saw that happen.
It was a tie game, and he came up and he's like, I can't play anymore. I'm like, no.
Oh, dude.
No.
That was the one where he was on the sideline, and I was like, Marcelo, hit the
blow it.
So two things on that, and I've heard you talk about it, Ryan. Obviously I rewatched that game, but one, I couldn't see Clint.
And I know.
And we said that.
Yeah. The amount of 2-on-1s that Clint has won.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, dating back to when I played with him on Nexus, and even
I knew what you were thinking.
Yeah, I was like, they don't quite know where he's at. Clint could surprise one of them with a shot, and then it's you know. And also, I was looking at the clock, and I knew 2 minutes is what I wanted to leave us. In my opinion, look, I have a lot of faith in the Lucky 15s. I think their ceiling is higher than any team in Europe. However, Scalp had won the previous 2 events. They have Malloy. They are the better team on paper there. If I could be in a 1-point game at the end of the match, I feel like that's probably our best chance rather than just getting buzzer happy. You know, if we can have 2 minutes and look, in that point to tie it up, we had an advantage. You know, we had a 5-on-4, then we had a 4, you know, and we had a chance. But yeah, so that was my thing, is like, I couldn't find Clint, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give it until 2 minutes. We got to the 2 minutes. The buzzer thing wasn't working, so that killed another 10 seconds. But I never knew what he was doing, and it did get to a point where I'm like, something's not right. Like, you're not doing anything now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why the refs wouldn't. I mean, I feel like if you're the last player on the field, if you're the last player on the field and that happens, you're like, shouldn't that be? I feel like that should be broadcasted. I feel like the coaches should be made aware.
You're like, hey,
I don't know. I mean, if there's an injury on the field and it's your last player, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that shouldn't, but it seems weird to like just let it, you know, go down like that.
Dude, I wanted to yell so bad. Like I'm up there. I'm like, somebody should tell him. Like, as soon as we were done, Mike and I was like, I wanted to yell, and Mike was like, me too. We just wanted to go like, hey, he's hurt. Like, you may not know he's hurt. Right. And we figured it out. Like, I don't know if you can see it on the I don't know what they show on the video, but like, we're both leaned all the way forward so we could see around that tent to see you and see where you were. And like, if you could see him,
there was nowhere I could go. I went all the way up to basically where the broadcast station was and all the way back, and I couldn't see Clint, you know, like I couldn't see him. I was like, man, if I can't see him, maybe they can't see him. You know, he's going to surprise somebody. But again, my process there was, you know, I'm okay being down 1 with 2 minutes. I think we can run a little stunt play, nice little chance to tie it and go into overtime and see where this goes. I had felt really good with that decision. Didn't work out, you know, definitely a bummer. And not having Clint, you know, for the rest of the match definitely hurt. And actually, you know, we had a few other guys in that match that had injuries too, that like mid-match are like, you know, I can't go this next point. I'm like, what do you mean? I need you. You just had a great point when you're hurt, you know? But that team, you know, again, this to touch on what you were speaking on, Ryan, is Lucky 15s are a pro team, but to me, they were a team that was young enough to where I felt like I could still have that fulfillment and kind of guide the ship a little bit. You know, a lot of people, you know, talk about whether or not I want to be a pro coach one day. And to be completely honest, I have zero desire to coach a you know, real high level pro team. To me, it's much more satisfying and rewarding. And I feel like I could do my job way better by coaching divisional teams or new pro teams to get them to, you know, to a certain point. But like to take over one of these high end pro teams as a coach, I truly just, I have no desire for it whatsoever. And so, you know, with the Lucky 15s, it's been amazing, even though again, pro team already established, had some success, but just a little different in that, you know, so it was really, really fun year to be able to work with them.
Yeah. And they're a team who's really never had a coach either. So it's great for you to be able to come in. And I was just talking to Mark about not Mark Johnson,
Dale,
Quiz.
Mark Dale. Yeah. Okay.
Quiz.
Nice.
And I was like, hey, like it's obvious, like you could see a difference in the group from the first event to the third event. Right. And like as a coach, that's all you can ask for. Right. It's like, I want to see the deficiencies we recognized at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, be less, just be less. Right. Like we're not going to be perfect, but be less. And if we can be close to perfect, that's great. Right. That's great.
Well, I hope he's healing up okay, man. Hope his ear's getting better. That's a bummer.
The only team we lost to on Sunday all year long was Scalp. It was the only team we lost to all 3 events. It was Scalp.
Yeah,
all 3 events.
I saw that.
And in the last 2, the first one we got our butts kicked 5-0. We got mercied in the first event in Portugal. And then in England again, we get into overtime against, we're up 3-1. Then we let them come back. We go into overtime and we shoot Arturo off the break. We get a big advantage. It's a 3-on-2. We're in all the positions. I'm like, we're moving on to the finals, you know, and they pull out. Just again, it's experience that wins those moments. You know, it's experience. And this kind of goes back to, you know, Diesel. It was Pizon was still on the field, and that dude's been playing paintball a long time. He's an excellent player. He's really, you know,
great player.
intelligent player. And they just made a few better decisions than us, you know. And again, it was the same thing in the finals in Paris. We had like a 3-on-2 or a 4-on-3 almost every single point. Like the amount of advantages we had, it was crazy. And they would just find a way to win, you know. I have an idea. Malloy's on the snake side. Let's look the other direction and let him come and shoot 3 of us. You know, that happened so many times. It was like Malloy would have his back against the wall, and then all of a sudden go on the attack and make something, you know, spectacular happen. One of the best players to ever play this game. So those are those little details. And those are the things, like, it just takes time and experience to, as a coach, you can't really do much to change that kind of an outcome. If you get an advantage, you get into the situations you want, it is up to the players to close the door. Now, of course, you could coach them on like why maybe a certain move was ill-advised in a 3-on-2, or, you know, you can obviously prepare them, but to actually execute this stuff on the field is an entirely different thing. I mean, for the longest time, I could talk about all the right things to do on the field, but when it was Sunday, and it's not really a pressure thing, even at first you have to get over the pressure, but once you get over the pressure, it's executing. You might make the right move, might make the right decision, but you don't connect on the shot. You just like slightly miss, and it changes the whole outcome. So, you know, it's a long process. And that again is my point with Diesel, is like, and just understanding what we went through with Dynasty and how long it took to have this like crazy success when the team even already had all this success in the early 2000s. And then they had another big run in 2013 and 14 when Tyler joined the team, you know, and then to go through a big dip, and like how long it took to come out of that, and the type of work that it took to come out of that, you know, and the connectivity, like it took a very long time. These things do not happen overnight. So that's, yeah.
And again, it's,
Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for the tremendous support with the PTG show. If you are enjoying these episodes and want to help with the progress and development of this program and connect with like-minded, hungry paintball players, then head on over to ptgpodcast.com, click the orange Patreon link, and become a member of the PTG World Discord chat room. And now back to the show.
Number one, maybe from a learning experience, maybe one of the best I've ever had, you know, really being able to kind of know what I want, what I don't want out of a group. Like I was talking to Joey last week, Joey Blute, and one of the things we were talking about was like fun, right? Is it fun? You know, and it certainly got to a point with Diesel where it wasn't fun. But, you know, one of the things I even said to them at the end of Friday, I was like, hey, you know, today wasn't what the outcome we wanted, but it was the most fun I've had being your coach all year. Like you guys, like are the energy in the pit was really good. You guys were focused. Like this was a lot of fun coaching you today. you know, it was just, we were in that groove where things were good, you know, things were really good. And that the tempo had a lot to do with that. But, you know, I told Joey, I was like, I definitely want to take the year off next year. I don't really want to coach a team. I may coach in Europe, which again is 3 events. That's easy to do, but probably not in America. And he was like, what would it take for you to coach in America? And I was like, it would have to be the perfect situation. And I don't think it exists. I don't think it exists. You know, I was like, I'm pretty confident that I need to take a year off and just kind of, and honestly, hang out with I don't have kids in my house anymore. It's just me and my wife. And, you know, this year was going to be kind of like, we were just going to travel together and hang out. And I can be gone for months at a time if she's with me, because she's home. Like where she is, that's home. You know, this is just sticks and windows and doors, you know, wherever she is, that's home for me, you know? So we may do that this year, you know, like I'll come to the events with the show and she'll come with me. And instead of doing team meetings, I'll go have dinner with her, you know, and so we can hang out together. So anyway, probably that's what'll happen. I mean, we'll kind of see as the year goes on. I'm still like, I'm rooting for Diesel. There's most of the guys on that team, not most, that's not rude. That's maybe a little rude, but I want to see all of them be successful. I just have doubts in its current iteration if it's possible, you know. And I hate to say that. It's just, it is what it is, right? Like I again, I don't sugarcoat things well. But I would love to see them, if this is what it takes, if Cody not being there and me not being there is what it takes for them to go to World Cup and not get relegated. Hell yeah. Great. Yeah. You know, then I'm glad you could get rid of me and that make a difference for you. I do think Kyle is incredibly intelligent. I do think he'll be helpful on the coaching end. He was in Texas. He helped me a lot. He helped me a lot. He does get a little theoretical, which I think is a little weird sometimes, but when he reads the box really well, he's really good with those things. I think, again, if Mark makes the decision, hey, you know what, it's probably best I don't play, or maybe he plays when they're up 3 or 4 points, but he really focuses on the coaching and get Kyle to help him. I think they'll do a great job. And I think that maybe that'll be the thing, because now the roster is really skinny. If that happens, right now they're down to 7 guys, and so they're going to play 7 guys. Well, depending on whether or not they kept Silos, I don't know whether they did or not.
Yeah, we'll hear about that soon. And Kyle's tremendous on the field as well, so it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens out there as we move into World Cup. And I think there's 2 coaching changes in the pro division going into World Cup. From what I understand, I think Mike Hinman as well is not coaching the Bears. Am I correct on that?
I believe that is correct. I
heard that. Yeah.
I don't know yet.
I heard that, but I don't know. I don't remember who told me that, but somebody told me and said, you know, it was a pretty good, but if like, I don't ever believe anything until I hear it. Like if somebody has my cell phone number, that's probably somebody I'll listen to.
Well, we could probably call Mike right now and ask him. He's that kind of guy, you know?
He'll let us know.
Yeah, we probably could, but I had heard that he made that. It's kind of like people, I don't care about criticisms from people I wouldn't get advice from. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Like when some people I hear things say like, oh, did you read that thing on the internet? And I'm like, I didn't. And they're like, oh, this guy says this. And I'm like, I don't know that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know that guy.
Well,
you know, so
just like, Mike is one of the best coaches in the world. So I would be very surprised if that happened. And I really hope that isn't true, because he, like I said, his mentality, talk about one of the sharpest to ever coach in the game. So much grit and just wise beyond his years with making the right choices and putting people in position.
Absolutely.
So I really hope that the Bears continue to keep Mike around, because he's obviously legend in the game.
Mike is an amazing architect, and not just from the like putting the team together correctly, but building the player right. You know what I mean? And not just like the physical pieces, but the grit, the mental attitude and fortitude that it takes to really be able to play at this game, not only at the highest level, but for a long time. Right. Like he, you know, again, he's a little gritty, a little bit like me, but again,
that.
I don't think that there's
Like that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Like if the person, if what you're saying is right,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not being mean, right? Like is maybe the delivery off from time to time? Sure, maybe, right? The delivery can be off, but like I over the last year have totally changed. Like I stay completely calm in situations with, especially one-on-one with players, completely calm, and I just give them the information, and I don't let emotions get in the way. I don't get angry. I just, here's the deal. Here's where it is. Here's where you are. Here's where I think you need to go if you want to continue to play. And if you want to continue to play at this level, not just with us, like you may not end up being able to get on a team just simply because of these things. This is it, right? And I just don't sugarcoat it.
Yeah. Well, I know as a player, I appreciate that. You know, I can only hope and I pray that people will tell me directly exactly what I need to do or any changes that I can make to my game. And I'm not concerned about the delivery. I want you to be 100,000% clear, you know, and make sure that we have clarity so that we can move forward and have a good connection and good communication. That's the only way we're going to have success. We cannot sugarcoat shit and be like, you know, beating around the bush. And no, we got to be efficient. We have to be extremely efficient through this whole process so that we can streamline and be effective. That's the only way to be successful.
That is literally one of the things that I say is ambiguity is the thief of progress. Like if you are ambiguous in your direction, you are cheating and robbing the player of opportunity to get better, because now they have to think about, well, did he mean this or did he mean this? Was he really saying this, but he said this because he's talked to me passive aggressively before? Was it this thing you really wanted me? Like if you just say, hey, here's the shit you need to fix. Here's how you need to fix it. Here's what I want to see moving forward. Do you understand? And they say, yes. Okay, great. Now we don't have to have any more conversation because now you've told me, I understand. I've listened to what you said and I'm going to go make those changes. We're good. We don't have to talk about it anymore unless you do it again. Then hey, remember the thing we talked about where I said, if you'll make these changes, you'll do these things, this will be the different. You're not doing that. So now we got to have a different conversation. Okay. Like, is it what I'm telling you, or do you not understand what I'm, you know what I mean? Then we can get into did you really understand that's why I don't like when people answer me when I ask a very specific question and they'll answer me with, I think. That drives me bananas. Like, no, don't think. It's yes, no, or I don't know. And if you don't know, we're going to talk about it. But yes, no, I don't know. That's it. And when you tell me I think, all I see is my 15-year-old daughter standing in front of me as I've scolded her going, what, Dad, I think I get it. And I'm like, oh my God. It's going to drive me bananas.
That's how it goes.
But so let's talk about, I do want to talk about Scalp.
Yes, I was actually about to ask.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do want to talk about Scalp because like that whole thing and kind of the way it came together. Number one, I'm a huge fan of Vince. Like his relationship to his players is next to none. Like how he treats them, you know, it holds them accountable with really high expectations. And in my opinion, does really the perfect job of being gritty with the intention, but then loving in the congratulations, right? It's that perfect balance of, you know, these are the things I asked you to change. You changed them. Now I'm going to hug you and tell you what a great job you did, give you a pat on the ass, right? Like he does that maybe better than anybody I've been around. And then also like his kind of understanding of the game is unique, different than most coaches I've been around. And I don't know if that's because he took such a long break and then kind of came in at this point last year. But his, I really just wanted to go hang out with them in their pits and in their preparation and take video and really kind of create a case study around why has this group been able to do this when we look at groups kind of like, you know, Austin Notorious or even the Hurricanes a little bit, where you have some really good players and you have guys that have been around a long time. Why has your group been able to find success faster than these, right? Who've basically done what they did, right? One's Division II, one semi, I guess with Hurricanes took a couple of years, but one Division II, one semi-pro, and then come right into the pro division and did something that no team has ever done.
Yeah, but they kind of revamped the whole team, bringing in.
I get it.
Yeah,
Batista, Pizzone, right?
Geiger,
but that's Geiger.
Malloy.
That's the other thing, though, that I think Vince is really good at.
Totally, that's part of it.
Yes, he's also really good at understanding where his holes are and how he's going to fill them, and more importantly, already has an idea of 2 to 3 players that would work in that role.
Yeah, certainly.
Like he just like understanding how he uses para and him being such a huge part of what happens in the pit, right? Is like, hey, he may not play every point and he knows it, but what he brings to the pit is that's his role. Like he's on the team for these things. He's great on the field, but he's exceptional at these things. Like he's just I couldn't be more excited to be able to go spend, the next 10 days kind of with World Cup, and really excited it happened the way that it did. And it just could not be more humbled either to have that opportunity.
What exactly is your role going to be with them? Or is that
everything
undefined right now?
No, it's totally defined. It was defined before I said yes, right? Like, totally defined before I said yes. I'm not going to put myself in a weird situation where we bump into each other as we go. Really, it's just to help Vince, right? So like, I'll be there through the whole practice weekend. So we're going to play Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. So I'll be there through all of that, and then really also helping them to better understand the American style of play, and which teams have which kind of like to play at which tempos, when and why, what coaches enjoy to do or like to do, what they're like. I have books of like every team and all of the things that each coach has kind of done. Even like I have stuff on Skinny from when he was with Tampa Bay Damage.
Wow.
Damn.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Just like stuff that they liked.
Yeah,
just like, all coaches get into tendency things. Sure. Usually, and especially with Skinny, has to do with his group. He doesn't really have tendencies. His are more around like who he has that's playing hot at the time. Right. And as far as what those guys are capable of and how they do things. But others certainly have tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Russians do. They get into tempos now. Like, I don't know how much you guys pay attention to all that stuff. I'm sure a lot, but they get into road like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in some cases pick up on 3 if they left off on 2 from the match before. Which I was like, Mike and I were kind of talking about it, and I was like, this is insane. Like, this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, so they have kind of a pattern here and there that they kind of get into. So it's interesting, but that's really where I'm going to be there to help Vince. And I've made it clear, like, hey, I appreciate you doing this, but I have no kind of the same thing I do with Team USA. I don't have an ego about it. I want to be helpful where I can be helpful. So I don't want to be in the way. If there's, I'm going to tell you things before I talk to a player, like you and I'll do this together. And if it's not important, you just say, Coach, we're good, and we'll move on. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of just he and I. In fact, he and I talked this morning for about an hour because we're trying to talk a few times a week to really understand each other better, so that we don't bump into each other and step on each other as we go. So
nice. Yeah. Solid.
What's it been like working with Mike? He is one of the best minds in the game and a really inspiring individual.
Yeah, man. If you want to talk about Mike, I could literally be here for hours. He's literally the brother. I don't have brothers, but he's like the brother I always wish if I had one. It was him. Mm-hmm. It was him, right? Like,
Mike is the man. We're talking about Mike Bianca, obviously, for all the listeners.
Yeah, Mike Bianca is like, we are very yin and yang, right? Like, I am well traveled. Mike is well read. Right. So like when we start talking about things, sometimes he'll pull these crazy quotes out, and I kind of get him every now and again. I'm like, well, what did it look like? And he's like, well, I've never been there. And I'm like, oh, let me tell you. Right. So it's interesting how our experiences, where the majority of his are from reading and studies and those kind of things. And the majority of my experiences, I am a reader, but the majority of my experiences are from travel, from experiencing it personally. And so we have very different outlooks. And it's so interesting too, even in our coaching styles, how our destinations are the same, but our process and journey to get there is slightly different. And in some cases very different. And Mike, he would maybe have a different pathway if he was with a team where the guys were all playing for free. And, with the Hurricanes, they all pay to be there. Mike pays to be there. I mean, it's a very unique situation, and it's hard. And I know Marcelo, we've definitely talked about, it's hard not to root for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm their competitor, but I love those guys. And they're the nicest guys. I mean, Drew and Daniel and Stu and like, I could go on and on talking about their roster, because it's not one guy. They're all just super sweet guys and very caring and love the game. And I mean, you couldn't do what they're doing and not love it, paying the thousands of dollars that they do to continue to make their team work. And Mike is such a huge part of that. I do think Mike is in a wonderful coaching situation, having Stuart Ridgel, because Stuart is one of the best minds in paintball that I've ever been around. I mean, when Stuart is done being a player, if he decides to coach, he will be an amazing coach for someone. He is, like, if you've seen their book, Stuart is a huge part of, creating all of that and helping Mike get it together. And he's in a wonderful situation. But Mike is a little bit like Matty in a way that he can take something that for 30 seconds that maybe isn't all that important and make it sound like it's the biggest thing on planet Earth. Like 30 seconds. You give that guy a snippet, and Mike can turn that snippet. It'll go viral. It's a reel, because he's a wordsmith.
He could turn a pebble into a mountain.
For sure.
Yeah.
Not to mention, he's also like, I sent him a message yesterday and just said he's having a lot of challenges at work right now. And I just sent him a message and said, "Hey man, good morning. Love you. Hope you have a great Sunday."
Yeah.
And he responded and was like, "Dude, you have no idea how much I needed that." And I was like, "Well, I'm thinking about you. I just want you to know, I hope you can get on the other side of this unscathed." So,
yeah.
That's what good friends are for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And he's the time I got to spend with him in France, winning all the things that we did over there was so fun. But the highlight of the whole deal for me was the time I got to spend one-on-one with Mike.
Yeah, major love to all the Team USA winners out there. That was crazy. Back-to-back years sweeping.
And you're coming next year, right?
Oh, we're not allowed back, actually. That's
we are. Next year's the last year we're allowed back for.
Is it? Okay.
None of it's for sure, but it sounds like next year will be. I do think actually that the men's should play every other year. I think when the men's play every year, it kind of it makes it not as special. Totally. I think the amateur and the kids and maybe the WNXL should play every year, because I think that helps facilitate growth in that community. But I think the men's should probably play every other year. I think it would just be cooler.
Agreed.
It'd be cooler. It's like you go over there, and if you lose, that stings for 2 years. And if you win, you kind of hold on to it for 2 years. When it's every year, it's not as special in the nations.
And are they still talking about one here, one there?
Yes, which would be cool. So we would have on the years that we can't go over there, apparently there would be an event over here that's kind of like the America's Cup, so all of South America.
Oh, wow.
And so still an opportunity to compete with Team USA.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, because it's if I don't coach anything next year, I'd still do that. I'd still go over
for
there
sure.
and do that.
Yeah,
because it's the best.
I love it.
It is.
Yeah, it's the best. And it's like the environment over there is just the best. It's
booming.
Yeah, like it's like soccer, and it's also cool. Like, so Daniel Houck, the captain and owner of Ballistics, who won the pro spot this year. So congratulations to his group. I literally had a conversation with him last year in the Netherlands, where he was telling me that like paintball in Germany was dying.
Absolutely. After COVID,
Yes, that it was like
Mhm.
literally on its like last leg, and he was, you know, really trying to spearhead a bunch of programs and things to help pick it up. And then to this year, come and have 3 teams on the podium was like, I walked up, gave him a huge hug. I was like, dude, you know, a year and a half ago, you're
Let's
telling
go.
me you're like your country's
Yeah.
done with paintball, and now here you are, and he's weeping, and it was such a special
Wow.
moment. You know, that you don't get that in
Mm.
the regular tournaments. You know, that it's
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah,
his
yeah.
country that made it so
Right.
emotional.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I love
it's
European events. It's they've always been a completely different vibe when you're over there. It's you can tell how excited people are to be there. They love paintball. I'm not saying we don't love it here, but it's just a different kind of thing there. You know, they're ecstatic to play, and you're right. There is a sense of pride amongst the teams because the teams are from different countries, and you're you know, Europe is smaller than the United States, but it would be as if we were as prideful in the state that we're from. You know, when we go to these NXL events,
yeah.
they're going and playing against other countries in the regular tournaments, you know, so they're not nations cups, but they kind of are. And then you're also, you're building these relationships with people from other countries too. So yeah, European events are amazing. It's one of the greatest joys that I've had in paintball is being able to travel over there to either compete or coach. That's why when I hear, you know, that they're trying to limit, you know, Americans going over there, it's to me one of the biggest mistakes I think we can make as an industry, especially when currently the professional division doesn't offer a base salary or even incredibly high paying salaries to where that could be the reward. The reward was always being able to travel for this game. That was always the reward. That, you know, has been the fruits of our labor, and being able to gain these life experiences that you can't otherwise get pretty much anywhere else. So let's not fully do away with that, please. I'm yelling that from the mountaintop. But
yeah.
yeah, anyway, coach, we want to get into some Discord questions. We've got some people that
I didn't know we had a Discord. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Come on now.
I mean, I know you have Discord, but I didn't think they'd be on it, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the
Oh,
morning.
we
Well,
posted.
we knew you were going to be on. So come on
Yeah.
now. I thought you listened to every episode. This is what we do.
I do.
We
But
got
I don't
you.
know, like it's hard to tell sometimes if the Discord is live while you guys are if this is live on Discord while
Right.
you're recording, which is what I thought you did.
Yeah.
We've done that, I think, twice, and it is a format that we have like dabbled with so that we can have a live element for the goats, the highest tier in our Discord. And it's pretty cool. And then we can, you know, you guys know how StreamYard works. We can pull up their questions. That's a unique kind of thing. But this conversation, we wanted to just be, you know, that also brings in a lot of distractions. And so we try to limit those, you know, because I like to be able to have just, you know, honest conversations without the distractions. But yeah, certainly we do have the Discord here. Let me pull it up.
PTG Nation. It's the new
yeah.
PB Nation. It's popping in there.
Yeah,
it's
I
a lot
got
of fun.
We have Stevie on tonight. So
Oh yeah, there we go.
Nice, dude. That's going to be an epic one. I mean, the last time he was on your guys' show, I thought it was really good. I was really proud of him. I mean,
he's so good.
He fully gets it. You know, he does a great job with Wrecking Crew, and he does a great job of absorbing and making, you know, some things uniquely his own. Yeah, Stevie has really come along, and man, they're in striking distance. Really proud of the Wrecking Crew camp.
That's what we're gonna get into tonight. Like Mike and I are gonna kind of stay out of the way and let him. We're gonna literally ask him to, hey, explain the semi-pro situation. Like, give us this. What's the story? Where's everybody at? You know, do you guys do you get to drop your lowest? And if you do, what is it really? Because so many people just look at the rankings and they're like, oh yeah, they're gonna win it. It's like, but do you know the rules? Do you know that they get to drop a game? Did you know? Because if they do, now really here's the scores, and this is how tight it is. This is how close it is. Like, it's really a good race.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, striking distance. You know, I keep telling them though, don't focus on that. Focus on winning World Cup. That's the most important thing, you know, and if you don't win the series, but you win World Cup, successful year, right? If you win the series and you don't win World Cup, it's like, should you even really move up? In all honesty, that's how I feel. I put so much weight on World Cups, and maybe I'm wrong in that.
Same.
But,
so I had before I won World Cup with Austin Notorious the semi-pro year, I had never won a World Cup. I have 5 second places.
Oh, painful.
5, 0 first places. Like,
Yeah.
when we won, like if you go back and watch the video, I'm literally standing in the back because I've won the first event, second event, third event, fourth event of the year.
Sure.
But I'd never won a World Cup. I'm standing in the background, like as the guys are all, and I'm just sending my wife a message. Like, I finally got this one. Right.
Yeah, I love it.
I wanted her to, like, you're the first person I'm going to talk to. Right. I'm going to let you know first. I got this one. Right.
Damn.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. No, it's special. There's nothing like it. But all right, we got Papa Sosh from the Discord. He wants to know, and this is a fellow Texan. Papa Sosh says, Ryan, how important is it for a team to make fun a central role in team culture as a component of establishing a winning culture?
Yeah, that's a run on, but I think fun has to be a part of the culture, but it can't outweigh the work.
Thank you so much. I read this question. I'll let you finish first, but I want to elaborate.
No, that's it. That's all I was going to say. It can't outweigh the work. And I don't think there's a like balancing act between the fun and the work that creates winning. I think winning creates winning. It becomes contagious, but yeah, it has to be fun, but the work is still the most important thing.
I believe Dynasty is to blame for this narrative, and it has kind of
agreed, by the way.
Yeah, it has gotten to a point. It has gotten to a point to where it's not even the reality of what has created Dynasty's success. So, like you said, the fun cannot come before the hard work. It cannot come before the process. You have to work incredibly hard and have a really diligent process, and then you make that fun. And then the fun comes in the success and the results and doing it with people you enjoy being around. I think that is where fun is important, is you have to do it around people that you enjoy being around. That makes the tough stuff fun. You were talking about, doing hard stuff with your wife in the morning, and then late, whether it's a really intense workout or a cold plunge, and then later in the day, you go through some adversity, maybe it makes it that much easier. It's the same thing in paintball. If you go through really tough times with each other, whether it's a really tough practice, a grueling practice, whatever the case may be, and you do it with people you enjoy being around and you believe in, and are putting in an equal amount of hard work, when you step onto the field at a tournament, all of those situations are not only easier to overcome, it's just more fun. Resentment starts to, kind of seep in amongst the team when you don't have everybody on the same page from a work ethic standpoint, right? If, like you said, with X Factor back in 2008, you were showing up to practice and half the guys were there, that's when you start having big issues. And so if fun is the priority and people aren't showing up to practice or they're not taking it as serious, you will not win. You will not win.
You'll have a lot of fun.
Yes, but you will not win. It is very important to have fun. And yeah, Dynasty is largely to blame for this narrative because the team has been having success and has been having a lot of fun, but that wasn't the first priority, and it's easy to just kind of, have a little misdirection when you're you just got to have fun. You just got to have fun. That is misleading to a lot of players and organizations that are working their way through the ranks and trying to build a successful camp. It's very misleading because that is not the priority. Wrecking Crew, they understand it fully. They work harder than almost any team that I know, pro, semi-pro, I don't care what division, but we make sure to have a lot of fun in the process as well. We'll have really tough days, but then at night we'll have a little brief meeting and then we'll go do something fun, whether it's go-karts or mini golf or a movie, and it was actually, I also dictate each practice throughout the season. I go out and practice with them. I'll host these, mega weekends. Some weekends it's all hard. And then other weekends I realize I'm you know what? We need a little bit of fun. So we're going to work pretty hard and I'll call the day early and everyone's kind of surprised. Why'd you call the day early? I'm because we have a movie that we're going to see at 6, Yeah. And they're I don't want to go to a movie. How is that team bonding? We're all sitting there watching a movie. I'm I promise you it is. You all are experiencing. So we went and saw Twisters. And again, everyone was pushing back on it. They were all let's do something where we could interact with each other. I'm I don't think you guys understand it. Watching a movie as a team really is great team bonding because you're experiencing this thing. And then as a coach, I like to make fun of certain things. And so, after the movie, the next day, we had codes that we used that were from the movie. And now like the players are kind of excited about these codes, you know, like we changed the switch call to Twister, you know, like just for the day, you know, and they have implemented things just from that movie moving forward that just keeps things fresh and fun. You always have to like sprinkle in a little bit of seasoning, you know, otherwise things just get overcooked and like boring, you know? And so
Right.
as a coach, I try to, you know, do that. And so there is a balance, but the foundation is hard work. And everyone, I really hope that all the listeners truly understand that the foundation has to be hard work, and that has to be first and foremost. And everybody has to show up, and everybody has to be bought in, and you make that fun. And if you can do that, then you're going to have some success.
Yeah, it's people, process, purpose, and performance, right?
That's Mike's 3 Ps,
No,
right? It's yours.
That's Ryan's 4 Ps.
Okay. What was Mike's? No, Mike has a different acronym.
Mike has 50 acronyms.
That's true. He does.
So he has PACE.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, primary, auxiliary,
Yeah.
secondary. No, I don't remember the third one, and then it's emergency.
Emergency. Yeah, I do remember the last one. That was nice.
He's got a bunch of those.
Yeah, Mike's the man.
They're hitters.
If
all
you
of
ever
them.
want to, if you ever want to see twisters in real life, just come hang out with me in around April, May, and we can watch it in real life.
Should. So I'm I forgot I have that thing up. I am in the middle of watching Tulsa King with my girlfriend. Have you seen it?
Oh, cool. Yeah, some of it. Yeah,
I think it's great. Sylvester Stallone's amazing.
Yes.
So,
and that's
so
like
goofy.
some of it's in Tulsa, some of it's not. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fun series. All right, Ty, you're up. You got a question?
All right. Yes. I guess this has the most votes out of any question in the Discord. And if you want to join, go to our website and hit that orange link and join us in here and get your questions on the show. Ryan, spill the beans. Who or what is the actual problem going on with ACD? So I know you kind of alluded to it, but I have to ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we already kind of talked about that, right? It's not any one person or one thing. Because if it was one person or one thing, I would have made that one change and then moved on, and we wouldn't have had the problem anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not one person or one thing, and it's not anything. Again, and I love Marcelo talking about the time it takes to really put it together. It's not something that's going to change overnight.
That's right.
Like these 2 adjustments that have been made with Cody and I going away doesn't necessarily mean AC Diesel is going to win the World Cup. There's a lot more going on there.
Yeah.
Yep. And we covered a lot of that. And he's part of the macro line gang. So we have this crazy thing in our Discord too. If you have a macro line on your gun, we have a whole thread for all those players. So shout out to CB2K. Thanks for being a part of it.
I do have a macro line on my gun because it's an autococker.
Yes, sir. Hey, we got to get you another perk of coming on the show is you get to join PTG World. If you want to join us in the chat, we'd love to have you in Discord as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Love to.
Yeah.
All right.
That'd be sweet.
Let's do it.
Love that. All right. We got Patty Rice. Hey, Coach Gray, spoken at Fit a couple times and watched you work with Diesel a lot. This is a great question he has. Knowing you have a lot of intentional one-on-one time with players, what was one of your favorite or proudest moments with the Diesel player from this season?
Man, I have a few. Honestly, probably it was with Kyle during the time period in which Kyle was kind of on the cusp of potentially getting cut. And we had probably a 45-minute conversation about kind of where he was at mentally and some things that I needed him to really commit to change in order to continue on with the team. And I think that really, I know it stuck with me, and I'm pretty sure it did with him. I saw a thing on Instagram this morning. He was playing again. That was one thing Kyle had kind of gotten away from. And so that one was really special because it turned what was going to be a really bad situation into a really good situation. And I think it invigorated Kyle and gave him a little more understanding about not just his role as a leader on a team, but just being a great player on a team when things were really, really hard. Great players step up in really special ways. They don't shell up and and not that I think Kyle was shelling up, but he wasn't playing as much paintball. And now he's, I feel like he's reinvigorated and he's out playing again. And he's thinking more about his game as a player rather than his game as a coach.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Kyle still has so much to give on the paintball field. That's why I'm like, dude, stop kind of going back and forth. I thought last year he was one of their best players. He was the reason they were in so many of their points. So like focus on that. And yeah, Kyle, he overthinks like everything in his life is the thing. And it's like, just decide to do this because you're going to be really good at it. And then keep coaching for the divisional stuff and maybe over in Europe. But, don't make that transition yet, because I feel once you make, I mean, I guess you could go back, but once you make the transition from pro player to pro coach, like, are you going to go back? Whereas once you, get as much as you can out of a playing career as you want, and then move on, have a clean cut, cut.
And I don't think Kyle is like, and he's had a weird season with us, like the Texas event, he just didn't play well at practice, but helped me in the coaching stuff. And then we go into this last event, and it's really, I know it was really hard on him because he'd just come out of a situation where he's almost getting cut. And one of the parts of our conversation was, I need you to go be a 1. I need you to really, because he's really who I wanted to put first on the Dorito side, and kind of fill that void over there. And I think he would have been able to do that no problem. He literally shows up Friday or Thursday night hacking and has this gnarly sinus infection. Like, so right away I'm like, crap, because now I can't have him running a point after point after point and getting the spins I need him to get out there. So, but I know he's reinvigorated. So now I got to put him in a different role where he can shoot a little bit. And like, I'm checking in with him all weekend. Like, hey, are you good? You need time? Are you good? Do you need a couple? And I like even wrote the lines where he was like on 1 out of 3. So, and then later in the day, if he said, yeah, I'm good, coach, then I'd give him like every other, or maybe 2 or 3 in a row. But I was really having to be cognizant of where he was health wise. And then we get to the event, kind of the same thing. He was still dealing with all of that. He comes off, I think it was like 2nd or 3rd point in the impact game, and he's damn near throwing up on the sidelines because he can't breathe. I totally agree. I think Kyle has a lot left in the tank. I think he's not even close to where his peak performance can be, because Kyle's always been a player where he's had flashes of brilliance. He's not had, and in my opinion, from experience watching his film, Kyle's not ever been able to put a full season together where he was kind of one of the top guys. Right. He's had these flashes where he plays kind of the event where he's out of 10, where he's playing like he's a 6, but then in this point he plays like an 8. Right. And then in this point, maybe he plays like he's a 4. He's got the ability to put seasons, and again, not a season, but seasons together now that, with his experience. And because, as you mentioned, he overthinks, he's very mindful. He's very thoughtful. He understands the game. I think Kyle could, from a player perspective, has another 5-10 years left if he wants.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite paintball players out there. And you're right. He does kind of get into where the thoughts overpower it. He's just got to trust himself. And I agree. You send that kid down the field as a 1, he's feasting. And I want to see him do a lot more of that.
Same.
Yeah.
And that was the whole plan with him staying. I was like, if you want to stay, you got to be. He put himself in places at practice. Like when I'm letting the guys kind of free flow, right? He would put himself in these 2-3 roles because he is good off the break and he's smart around the box. And so he put himself in these roles where like other guys would be getting out and getting involved up the field, and Kyle's still playing around in the back. And I'm like, hey, I need you to get up the field. Like, you can't be back here. If you're back here, you're just not going to get very many opportunities because I got that guy and that guy who do that job better than you. So I need you to go out there and do that and
go get him.
Yeah. And when he does do that, damn, he's good.
Hell yeah.
Damn, he's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We got, what a name. Basically the worst in the Discord.
That's his name?
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty kick-ass name.
I know. We've got some really
worst.
Yeah,
this is basically the worst.
We've got a lot of really good ones in here. What do you plan to bring to Scalp that will hopefully bring them a victory out there at Cup?
Yeah, just again, kind of the understanding of the way American style is a little bit different, and it's not terribly different. But it is slightly different than the way that they play overseas, with how long guys are willing to sit on gaps. And
Yeah.
now, of course, the layout is going to be really dependent on how quickly the tempo can ramp up. Which, by the way, the scout guys are really good at holding zones too. And then also making sure early on in practice they understand, like, if you're going to carry 8-9 pods, you need to carry 8-9 pods every point you come out, even if we're doing drills, just to get used to that additional weight around the hips and, for what it does to groins and those kind of things, carrying that additional weight. And then also, like, the scouting part, I don't know how Vince and they scout, and he told me that they have a scout, which I'll probably do a lot of that. Number one, because I enjoy doing it. That's how I get all of this data that I have, and I enjoy it in the breakdown. I like it later, especially for the show, when we go back and break things. Yeah, we go back and break things down. So I'll do a lot of scouting with Vince, and I'll do the majority of that together. And then honestly, wherever I can fill some holes that I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Perfect.
Love it. All right. We got Fab. He says, "Hey, Ryan, I overheard some of your frustrations with the reffing calls at Windy City, namely the swing point from the major that happened at the end of the X Factor game. I was watching from the sidelines, and from my viewpoint, that Dorito side trade was as bang as it gets. You mentioned how the league wants close-up, fast play, but then throw penalties on game-changing situations like this. How could this situation be avoided? What rule changes and updates to a review system should be beneficial or would be beneficial?"
Yeah. So great. Number one, great question. And this is where it's really tough when we have these platforms to talk about it. Cause then I told you guys early on, like, I had gotten into this place where I'm blaming all these external things that I don't have any control over. And so I want to be clear that none of the games that we lost were because of reffing. It was impactful, but we had opportunities and other points, and unfortunately didn't take advantage of those. But yeah, great question. And to answer your question, so number one, I think the referees should have to do the same thing the players do. Take a deep breath before you make a decision. Make sure that it's the right one. Verify that. Earlier in the match, Clint got a minor penalty. He put a pod in front of his foot at the brick. The pod got shot, and the referee from behind him runs up, already having thrown the flag, gets up to Clint and realizes that the paintball had hit the pod, not Clint's foot. So he's already called the penalty before he verified what happened in the situation. And then that one with BJ there at the end of the match with X Factor. Number one, BJ should have been shooting his gun down the wire the whole time and never come off of it. And then the situation wouldn't have happened. We'd have just gone to overtime. That would have been helpful. But the review system, so Jason showed it. The problem is the camera is only on BJ. You can't see the player running at BJ.
Shot, yeah.
So, like, BJ gets shot and is still motoring the guy, but of course he is. The dude's still shooting him. So they're shooting each other. They're not, if they shot each other, they're not changing the game if they continue to motor each other. They're shooting each other. So
I will say, though, that is why it's so important as a player. And I preach this to any of the players that I coach, whether it's Team USA or Wrecking Crew, Misfits, doesn't matter. If you see somebody coming to bunker you and you come out and you shoot them, literally tuck in and look the other way.
Yes.
Put your gun the other way, because if they put a ball on you, it is the most obvious penalty to the ref.
Yeah, you can just sit there
and you want to play that game because they're playing on, they're cheating, and you want to overshoot them. Now you're giving the opportunity for a ref that doesn't see the other player. He only sees you shooting with hits on you.
Totally.
It's a penalty every single time. So to me, to not have the discipline in those scenarios, I always put on the player, and I put on myself if that happens. It's, if you see and know that you connected on somebody, turn the other way, or just put your gun up at least, I
say that all the time. Just turn your gun away and eye dagger the referee.
Yes.
Because if the guy runs by and he shoots you and you're eye locked with the referee and your gun's across your body and that guy has hits on him and he hit you in the side, he's getting the penalty.
Yes.
He's getting the penalty.
Yep.
But again, 100%. If the two refs that were over there that, by the way, they both said, well, this is what we saw. And I asked both of them, which one of you was watching the runner? And they both stared at me with their mouths open. That's when it became a problem for me, because
Yeah,
I'm
of
like,
course.
okay, so there's two of you standing there watching one guy. Neither one of you had the wherewithal to say switch, and the guy furthest away from him, like toward his back, looks at the player running so you can see when he gets shot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah,
I do think that we do have there is a reffing, I don't want to say problem, but again, if they want us to play up tempo, and we are, all the teams are playing at a higher tempo, and the bunkers are so close together, you're going to get more of these very instant situations and scenarios that occur, that if you're not prepared as a referee staff to understand when to make switches and who's watching what player, like even when I refed years and years and years ago, the guy next to me, we would have conversations based on the way the field was. Hey, if there's a guy here and here, when your guy comes, just to tell me switch, and I'll look at your guy, you look at mine. That way you can see the front of him and I can see the front of him. If they're not going to make those kind of changes, then for sure, at least take a deep breath and make sure that the call you're about to make is important enough to impact that game. Make sure.
Yeah.
Make sure. Because if it's not, you're impacting a game that is a problem. And so 3 of our matches, actually all 4 of our matches in Atlantic City, I was apologized to, and then finally told A-House, stop apologizing to me, just get it right. Don't say I'm sorry again. Just get it right.
Certainly.
And then the last event, we only had a couple that were the one in the Impact game and one in the X Factor game. And the one that happened later with Silos was real. He did play on. He totally missed Archie Barnes when he came around the snake. He shoots the second guy. Archie shoots him, and he comes back and shoots him. Right? Yeah. That's a penalty.
Yeah, I saw that one for sure.
Yeah, that's a penalty, right? So, and Jason shows it to me, and I'm like, yep. I come back in the pit. I'm like, yeah, Silos, you missed. Right? Which he, again, that close, understanding the moment. Like, I get it. You're not going to connect every time, but damn, you're a foot away. Let's make sure that first guy's marked, right?
Yeah, but even if you don't, you get shot, don't pull back and squeeze the ball off. That's the most important part of that. I think the reffing thing is just so tough because one, they're probably underpaid for what they do. It's really difficult to stand out there all day long. I mean, I stand out there and watch a little bit. I get delirious. I'm like, can we please leave? Can we go get in the car, get an AC? Can we get some food? Like, it's brutal. It's really difficult. I do think there's some immediate things we can do that don't cost anything that could maybe make a little bit of a difference. I believe that the refs should have a little bit of a personality. If you throw a penalty, I think you should have to, on camera with the microphone, explain exactly what the penalty was, right? So when Go Sports goes into the intermission of like 30, 45 seconds, it goes to that ref with his little picture, his little icon. This ref made this call. It, one, informs the audience of what happened, which I think is really interesting. You want the audience to understand the penalties. You always have Maddie and Rich up there like, oh, what exactly was a penalty for? Have the ref explain it, you know? And now these refs are going to be held accountable a little bit, you know, and for better or worse. I think most of the time calls are right. I think it's really difficult to ref. I think some of the refs like don't want to be jerks, you know, and other refs just want to like be really strict by the rule book. And is that being a jerk or not? You know? And so it's like this, sometimes you don't get consistencies. That's to me, an immediate, like free way to maybe monitor the reffing a little bit. Cause it's going to be highlighted. You might have one ref that is always on the thing and it becomes just apparent. It's like, why are you throwing so many more penalties than someone else or the same ref on the other side? Secondly, you mentioned communication amongst the reffing team. There is like a deep web of structure to, you know, to the pro refs and to all the refs and how they communicate and make their switches and their zone calls. It's really taxing and requires a lot of like mental clarity, and you got to be really sharp. So to ask them to do that for 12 hours a day is kind of brutal. And so this is the more expensive route. You need more than the I don't know how many exactly they have, but they should rotate more refs onto that field so you get more breaks and have fresher sets of eyes. Now, again, that's a bigger expense to the NXL. So that's the tougher path to go down. But ultimately, these refs wouldn't be standing out there for 12 hours in the blistering heat with their goggles on. Like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be communicating shit probably. I'd be watching the players and like, I'm watching this guy, you know, like, especially towards the end of the day, it's just tough. It's tough. And again, you go back
our
to
game. Our games were at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. So I hear you. Right?
They were out there all day the day before, and they were anticipating how long they were. They were managing their energy.
So to be clear, I am very understanding and sympathetic to everything that you just said. My games were at 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. on the first day. So, and those were the two games that we had problems in. I again, because I've done the job, I get it. I understand it. It's really hard. It sucks, but I chose to do it. So I chose to do it well. I agree. I did not want to. And if I ever made a bad call, I owned it immediately. I didn't need play-by-play to come over to me and go, hey, you fucked that up. Like, I know, right? I didn't need that. I could literally say, that was impulsive. I made that penalty. I called that penalty too quickly. But I also, like, if I call a player out, I tell them where they're hit right away. I say, you're hitting your pack. That way, they're also not going to talk to me and potentially get a talking penalty because they don't know where they're hit. Mm-hmm. And our refs don't do that either. They can't take the time to go, hey, you're hitting the loader. Hey, you're hitting the pack. Hey, it's on your arm. Like, just tell the player where they're hit. Then you don't have the guys literally pulling their damn packs off and walking back. Like, there's so much. Sorry, it's my puppy. She's not a puppy. She's 120-pound Great Pyrenees who gets really excited if people are anywhere around my house.
It's perfect.
Annie Bear, relax. So, or the other thing that was asked was about review. Relax. Thank you. They need more cameras. If we're going to use this review system,
yes, sir,
we need more cameras. Or put the barrel cams on, and there'll be timestamps. This is when this guy got shot. This is when this guy got shot. Pretty simple, right? Yeah. But literally, if we're going to do that, then the viewers would need to understand every single call that happens. Someone got shot first? There's rarity that two guys shoot each other at the same time. I would
say it almost never happens. It's just not possible. Yeah. So they're actually, you would probably, the league would probably have to, if it got to that point, you would probably have to have some sort of, like, if it's within 0.5 seconds, it's a trade. You know, you would have to have something.
Which is like, that's probably, again, from a reasonable paintball mind, that's acceptable, right? Which is why when I see emotional calls made, I go one of two different ways. You either have an ego problem and you want to participate in the game. You want to participate. I'm talking about the ref. You either have an ego thing and you want to participate in the game, or you legitimately did not take a deep breath there and verify what was going on. You didn't understand the moment. You made a call based on emotion, and that happens. That's a mistake. That's okay. You're a human being. You're going to make errors.
It's tough too, though, because, like, sometimes I complain if a penalty's not thrown fast enough. You know, you're trying to score a quick point. You see someone playing on, you're like, pull the penalty. You know, it's a penalty.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a fine line there. The refs have a tough job for sure. They could definitely be better. I mean, we all can be better, right? That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, and again, I want to be clear that I still think they do overall, like, the grand scheme of things, they do a great job.
Yeah.
The reffing is better now than it's been in a long time.
Absolutely.
It's still, again, I think when they sped the game up with the layouts a little bit, that we kind of regressed a little bit in reffing, but not because the refs are worse, just because it's harder. It's a lot harder to referee. I mean, there's more bunkers. Guys are getting rub all over them. There's a lot going on in a minute and 30 seconds with thousands of paintballs in the air for those guys to delineate through all of those processes. I understand that sometimes I'm asking that, like, I need you to be perfect, but you can't be, right? You can't
totally
be. And I get it. And I'm also, like, I am sympathetic to the fact they're human beings. They're going to make mistakes. Like, if they call, there's one referee I have a real problem with because he calls guys that, not my guys. He hasn't ever done it to us, but I sat in the stands and I watched him in Atlantic City in 3 points in a row call guys out that weren't shot. They weren't shot.
Oof.
And I walked over and I told Andrew, I was like, hey, man, number over there on the Dorito side, literally 3 points in a row. And one of them I got on film. And
happened to us. It happened to us.
You guys might have been playing in that set. Because it was 3 points in a row. It was three different teams that he did it to. And I'm just like, this is impressive how bad this is.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Painful.
Yeah.
Painful.
Yikes.
All right. We got to move on. We got to move on.
Yeah.
I know we got 2 more good questions from the Discord.
Okay.
Did I ask the last one or did you, Ty?
I can't remember, but I'm going to go with G Stone. Shout out to Grayson being in here. 95. Hey, Coach.
Stone from Aftermath. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Thank you, G. Hey, Coach, when it comes to team culture and structure, what are some key lessons you learned throughout your career?
Oh, yeah. Great question. I kind of mentioned the 4 Ps earlier, right? And that's culture. When you when you understand your people and you have good processes, it translates into a product that you can be proud of. And that's not the other P, but so people, process, purpose, right? Everybody understands our purpose. And when I say everybody has to be bought into the purpose. Like, we're going to do this work to get to here. And then the last P comes into performance, right? And so when all of those things are married, where you can understand the individual and you spend the time to get to know them, and then your processes are good, and everybody then can understand, hey, we're doing these processes to get to this point, which is our purpose. Then performance, again, exceptional or acceptable performance. And I think a lot of times we kind of talked about this earlier, like, what is the expectation of the output, right? What kind of outcome are we going to have that we're comfortable with? Certainly that shouldn't be, again, like for AC Diesel, 17th, 18th place. That's not acceptable, right? But are we really, should 8 to 12 be acceptable for this group? Probably. Right now, probably. That's probably acceptable. At least for me, it was. That's acceptable. It's not great. It's not where we want to be, but in the iteration we were in, 8 to 12 would be acceptable, right? So culture is we talk about it all the time, how critical it is. So much of that revolves around what is that expectation, and not just about performance for the group, but your participation in that performance as a player. Like, I think a lot of times players believe in their minds, I should be playing every point. I'm good enough to be playing every point. Well, maybe you are good enough to be playing every point, but this layout's not for you. That bunker you're trying to play, that's not for you. And I've moved you to 5 different spaces. And unfortunately, this guy and this guy and this guy are better than you. So in this layout, I need you to be a great teammate, because you're not going to play a lot. You need to be a great teammate. So
you got to be selfless.
Totally. So that purpose, you can drill down into lots of micro values there, but certainly culture, fun does have to be part of it. I appreciate Papa Shots bringing that up, because fun does have to be a part of it. And I know with several teams I've been on, as when you get toward the end of the season, if you are struggling, it's not fun. It's no longer fun. Yeah. No longer fun.
Nice. All right. Last question. This is one of the most important questions, a standard on the show here from our man Verb. Favorite food and favorite place to eat it?
Yeah, man. So steak, it's a bone-in ribeye, and it's at a place called The Ranch. It's about 15 minutes from my house here in Norman, Oklahoma.
The Ranch.
Nice.
I'm headed there.
Yeah,
it is a 26-ounce bone-in ribeye. That is flash fired on each side. So they flash fire it. It's like this thick. So they flash fire. It's almost like a tomahawk, but it's a ribeye. And then they put it at like 600 degrees for about 6 minutes. Bring it out to me nice medium rare on a hot plate, so you can slice the stuff closest to the bone and cook it a little more on the hot plate. It's scrumptious. And I put a little Oscar sauce over the top of it, right? Oscar. So it's got a little bit of crab and a little bit of shrimp and Bernaise sauce. It's my favorite.
Sounds fire.
It does. That sounds incredible. I love it. Yeah, man. Coach,
we went the distance on this one.
The distance for sure. That was well. That's not the distance for them. I see some of your guys' episodes. Fucking, I think one of the last ones is 5 hours.
Nice.
What do you? It was 4.5 hours.
No.
What do you
never
mean?
had one even close to that?
What are you talking about? Yes,
never had one even close. No.
I'm pulling this up.
He's going in. He's going in right now.
I'm pulling it up.
But that's
I don't know
good.
if you merged 2 episodes or what, but you guys just had one that I looked at and I was like, that's not even possible.
They must have had Maddie Marshall on the show.
We did. That one was pretty long. We had to cut it off at like 2 hours.
Oh,
Those are some of our
Coach. You're right. I want to explain what I saw.
Okay.
It was the coach's show. It was the coach's show, Chicago 2024 virtual field walk. And all of them usually say like 1 hour, 21 minutes, 2 hours, 26 minutes, 1 hour. This one was under an hour, so it didn't have that. What I saw was 4:57 minutes, but it was September 4, 57 minutes.
Yeah.
I got.
Yeah,
I was like, how did they talk about? How did they field walk for 5 hours?
We didn't. Yeah, and we talk like we literally like have a pretty set like if we go over 2 hours,
you're right.
It's only because the content is so good we don't want to stop it. Right.
Yeah,
We've only had a couple of those episodes. Like, you know, Marcelo, you were on one that we went over 2 hours, where we had you and Anthony. That one was so good. We just like we don't want to get to a point where it becomes mundane. Right. In fact, sometimes, and Maddie does this with us every now and again, you guys know this. He'll take us down a path where I can see trouble ahead. And I'm like,
100%.
Hey, man, yeah, I'm like, love you. We got to cut this off. We got to stop here. Otherwise, 100%. We're going to go down some rabbit holes that I don't think the audience wants to journey with us.
I love Maddie, dude. He's one of the greatest people to go to lunch with. But yeah, sometimes on the show, it's like, okay, back on track. Let's keep the train on the track. It's impossible.
So when we had Maddie on, we had 3 questions. That's it. 3 questions. And
did you get any of them answered?
Kind of.
See, you know, that's smart to only have 3. We'll go into it. We have some questions, and like the first time we had him on, it was literally like 4 hours in. We're like, Maddie, we haven't even really answered any of the questions, and we got to go. Let's have you back on tomorrow night and finish this. Feel like too crazy.
So we have there's some guys. Mike Jeffrey was a little bit that way.
Yeah.
Super smart guy. Like I really want to get Mike back on the show because he's really intelligent. But it's the wordsmith guys, right? Yeah. It's the ones where when you ask them a question, you get there sometimes, but it's like we gotta take a journey with you before we can get to the answer.
Like that.
Yeah.
And the journey sometimes is awesome. Yeah, I could talk with them all day. And same with you. And we can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to chat with us for a couple hours here.
Hell yeah.
Everybody, please be sure to support the Coach's Show, support Major League Paintball. And we can't wait to see you out there soon for World Cup. I did want to dive into the brackets, but we'll get to that probably on another one of these episodes coming up. There's going to be some fun brackets going into World Cup, and we can't wait to see you out there.
What's going to be really exciting next year is, since I'm not going to be coaching a team, I'll be able to say things that are different than what just because like you guys are all my peers, right? And so I keep it. And not that I would ever be disrespectful, because I wouldn't. I love the game way too much, and the energies and efforts everybody puts into this. So I'd never be disrespectful. But there are certain things that I would love to say sometimes on the show that I can't, right? I can't. Yeah. So it'll be different when I'm less. Hopefully people don't take things like that too serious, right? Because it's just my perspective.
Well, it's sports and it's all valid, man. So we can't wait to see the new content too, with all the mic'd up stuff and all the creative new aspects that you're adding. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I mic'd up Marcelo when we were in Paris, and I just got that uploaded to the folks over at BKI for them to start using for some of the marketing.
Nice.
There we go.
And I've got a couple of snips that I'm stealing out of it that I'm creating reels around for the Coach's Show that were really good. Like, one of the ones he says is, we play loose to get the lead. We play with discipline to keep it.
Play loose to earn the advantage. Play discipline to keep it.
That's it. Yeah. And so I snipped that one out. I was like, I'm going to, and he's got 2 or 3 others that I'm putting a couple little reels together. And it was unfortunate. I didn't get enough when we ended up splitting the teams up, and like I took one I didn't have enough opportunity to get other guys mic'd up, but I really want to do that in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love it.
Be on the lookout.
All my secrets.
Yeah.
Well,
it's okay.
You know as well as I do it. It doesn't matter if they don't implement.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we got to execute. We give it away on PTG. You got to execute.
That's it.
Coach, it's Sir, thank you so much. Really appreciate
sir.
it. And
Thank you,
look
guys.
forward to talking to you again soon.
Yes, sir. Have a
All
great
right,
day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you, goats.
Later,
Yeah.
goats.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to ptgpaintball.com. Click the orange Patreon link in the corner and support the show. We greatly appreciate it. We have tiers as low as $1.99 a month. That is nothing, guys, and it'll give you access to the Discord where you get access to the players chat and get to mingle with the entire PTG community. We have tons of different pros in there. Tyler and myself are very active, and it's an amazing way to support the show. We also have amazing other tiers. If you want to be one of the best, want to be a GOAT, sign up for the GOAT tier. It's the greatest way to support us. And each month we do a private live stream show, one-on-one kind of thing, to where it's just the GOATs, and Tyler and myself will bring in some special guests every now and then, but you get to ask us questions in real time, live on the air, and you get lots of inside juicy news that we don't share on the show. So, as always, we will see you guys very soon.